Tonight we're continuing The House in Fata Morgana, a long-form visual novel complete with me reading all of the characters out loud. It's been a ton of fun. Thank you everybody for being a part of this long-form journey with me. We're going to get right into things here. If you remember at the end of last episode, we finally made visual contact, if you will. Our first visual contact with the witch, who pulled Giselle away after expressing some vague, you fucked up, Michelle, you fucked up. I forget the actual details of it all. But this is the kind of game where, it does a really good job of reintroducing those details and making, so I'm not too super concerned about it. It was just kind of some vague, you shouldn't have done this. Haven't you realized your curse is a curse, you witch, you motherfucking witch? And flash a title card. The House in Fata Morgana. The story behind the story. And we had a cute little moment where we were talking to Giselle, just making small talk about each of our lives. But I don't know where we're going from here. We heard the story of the maid. We heard the stories of, Nellie and Mel, of Bestia and Pauline and fucking, what was it? I forget his name. I forget the boy's name on the beach. And then obviously Jacopo. I know it's Jacopo, but we've been saying Jacopo here and we're stuck in our ways. We're Jacopo till the end of time. And we've put a lot of pieces together. But if Javi, thank you. Good call. You know how I am. If this game is any indication, no matter how many pieces of the puzzle we've put together, you take a step back and suddenly the puzzle is about twice as large around the edges, and now you got to put all those pieces in, and then you're like, oh, okay, finally this is the full puzzle, and then you take a step back and you're like, oh shit, no, there's even more. The amount of, I was talking about it in a Discord today, the revolving door and the fluidity of answers to previous questions and new questions being introduced. Bahuma, surprisingly, you are not the first person that said that. I mean, I guess we've been doing this for 11 weeks, but you are not the first person that has noticed the phallic chair. You are not. The scorn chair, right. I'm excited to see where we go. We got an extra hour of reading time on the docket. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much for, adjusting to the 1 hour earlier schedule. Minky Moo did notice it last time. We're going to get right into things here. Ooh, let me add in the advisory for any new people that come in. And for everybody else, you know the drill. Lot of reprehensible situations being told here. A lot of very intense subject matter. A lot of things that can be very, very upsetting from a verbal perspective or from actions that characters take or make. There's a lot going on here. It has a core of processing trauma and grief and hardship and tragedy and finding love through that. And so I just want to say that if anybody, reaches a point in this stream where it's just like, man, I do not fuck with what's going on here, I completely understand. Feel free to come back on another day when we're playing something else. Feel free to check out for a half an hour and come back in and say, hey, what did I miss? And I'll do my best to kind of give any explanation I can, because it's a very well-written story, and with that good writing comes intense depictions of troubling scenarios. So, with all that being said, Let's get back into it. You must never reclaim your old selves. Become my loyal servants, always at my side. And curse them with me, my dears. Eternal suffering on all their souls. My consciousness, wavering like a ship at sea, is slowly drawn back to the surface. With each new breath, feeling gradually returns to my fingers. I can hear the pattering of rain from somewhere, and the sound of a crackling fire. Creak, creak, creak. Splurt, splurt, splurt. It takes a moment for me to realize I am in the very same spot where I first awoke. I don't know how I got here, but I'm sitting in a rocking chair, hunched forward. My head feels like someone filled it with rocks, and I'm having difficulty focusing. My joints are creaking, and I feel like I'm going to vomit. A suffocating odor hangs over the room. What is this? Giselle. Giselle! Everything comes back to me all at once. That's right. I watched Morgana kidnap her. I watched the witch drag her into the darkness, unable to reach her hand. Where are you, Morgana? Ugh. I know you're there, cackling as you look down on me. Say something, witch. I will find you, and I will take her back. What on earth? There's a pool of liquid at my feet, rising just short of my ankles. It's sticky and uncomfortably warm. Every step I take makes splat, splat noises. This is... I got a drum machine? Listen to this. Blood. Seriously. The mansion has taken on a very different face from when Giselle was leading me through its halls. Blood of unknown origin not only covers the floor, but also streams down the walls and drips from the ceiling. I'm speechless as I behold the dreadful scene. Every breath I take tastes and smells of rust. Ugh. It's all so unreal. Beyond my comprehension. All I can do is stare aghast, feeling like I might pass out. Giselle, are you seeing this? This same twisted nightmare as me? An image of her floating alone in a vast sea of blood flashes through my mind. That vision kicks me into motion. I promise I will come for you, so please, just hang in there for a little longer. I begin walking, or more accurately, dragging my heavy feet forward. The constant splashing of blood against my ankles grates at my already taut nerves. Morgana told me to find my way to her, and I can think of only one place she would be. She and Giselle must be there. The stained glass window is splattered with blood, too. It creates trails like streams of tears running down the Archangel's face. I give the window a brief glance before making my way to the door leading to the observation tower. However, why won't it open? There shouldn't be a lock. So why? Lustrous black chains seal the metal door. I can recall no such obstruction present during either my life or my time hereafter. What on earth is going on in this house? No, that's not important right now. What matters is making it through this door. Damn it! I pull and I push, but the chains won't give an inch. They feel sturdy enough that I probably couldn't cut through them either. There has to be some way. I consider giving up here and scouring the rest of the house, but I'm convinced the tower is my best chance. The fact that it's sealed now when it hadn't been before feels like a challenge more than a deterrent. I trace a length of chain with my hand, and at the end of it I find a peculiar-looking lock into which the ends of several chains have been fed. There are 3 keyholes? Morgana fashioned a custom lock just for this. I need to find 3 keys to open the door, then. But I have no idea where to begin my search. I lived here for more than 10 years, and yet it feels like I've stepped into a strange land. No, it's not the same house. Searching blindly is only going to waste time, and the longer I take, the more danger she's in. I met someone before who had a key. It was before I had reclaimed myself, when I was exploring the mansion, alone. Think, Michelle, who was it? Who was it, folks at home? This is the Dora the Explorer moment, where you shout, Blue's Clues moment, where you shout at the screen. The painting! Like everything else in the house, the painting is covered in blood. That it depicts a serene, rural landscape only makes the contrast that much grimmer. I remember talking to this painting, assuming I wasn't hallucinating. I have a question for you. Are you awake? Please, wake up. Can you hear my voice? Please, say something. You reside here in the house, like the witch, don't you? You've been here with her all this time, haven't you? Then you must know how to get into the observation tower. About the 3 keys that I need to open the lock. I need to get into the tower. Please, tell me where I can find the keys. Say something, damn it. Answer my question. Is someone there? What? What's the matter? I feel kinda strange. Did the witch do something to me? Please, get a hold of yourself. Everything's all red. Whole lot of red. Playboy Cardi. I can't stand it. I don't remember using that color. I reach my hand up to try and wipe as much of the blood off of the canvas as possible, but I can't even smear it with my sleeve, let alone get it off. You're wasting your time, but it's the thought that counts. And anyway, you had a question for me? Go on, I'm listening. I guess the painting isn't on the witch's side, then? The door to the observation tower has been locked. I need to gather 3 keys, I think. That's my assumption, since the lock has 3 keyholes. Do you know of any such keys? And if so, could you tell me where they might be? Keys? 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 Please, stay with me. You're the only one I can ask for help. Keys. I'm guessing this is probably in some way connected to the past. Her past. You know, the events the witch is always cursing about. What happened between her and those 3 men? What happened between them? The keys are probably with 3 of them. The 3 shadows. You must have seen them. 3 men. Shadows. Find them, and you'll probably find the keys too. Watch yourself. They aren't likely to trust you easily. The depth of their sins grows greater the farther you go. Visit them in order. In order. The first one probably won't be a problem. So tell me something. You're Michelle, aren't you? What? I've wanted to apologize to you for so long. Wait, what do you mean? Do you know me, did you? What do you want to apologize for? Tell me, please. Could you be... But why? How? When everything else is finished, I'm going to need to visit this painting again. But now, I have other things to do. The painting gave me a hint about where I could find the keys. I don't know anything about this past Morgana has with the 3 men. I never asked her about herself, after all. So maybe I'm going to end up having to do more than simply take Giselle back. Has our involvement with the witch caused us to be swept into a twisted maelstrom of fate? Regardless, I need to get to work. The painting said to visit them in order. I assume he was referring to the order I entered the 3 doors? Say it with me, everybody. If we're going to find the first, are we going to the den? Are we going downstairs to the cellar? Or are we going outside to the rose garden? I can't hear you. Rose garden. That's right, everybody. We're going outside to the rose garden. We're going 3. I make my way to the rose garden. The corridor leading there is a mess, and the wooden door is rotting away. I can smell the flowers on the other side. Everything is different from when I was alive, from when Giselle planted and raised that single rose. A scene from the past spreads out before me. The field of once proudly flourishing roses is now withered and gray. Knowing how beautiful it had once been only makes it that much more dispiriting. A bitter breeze brushes past me. Solitude hangs over the garden like a thick fog, eating away at me. This isn't what I wanted. Someone get me out of here. Oh God, tell me it's not all my fault. A young man's shadow stands off to the side, muttering listlessly to himself. I recognize his voice. Do you have the key? The boy and I have never met, but I feel like I know him quite well, like we have been acquainted for many years. I know how polite and mild-mannered he is. Blue can do, you can too! I know how kind and how vulnerable, how human his heart is. However, very little of that boy seems to remain. Well, this isn't what I wanted. Oh God. Please answer me. Someone get me out of here. Tell me it's not all my fault. Answer me, Melrose. I know that's you. Huh? As soon as I say the shadow's name, it turns to face me. I still can't make out much detail, but he seems slightly less tenuous now. Who are you? How do you know my name? My name is Michelle. I once lived here, in this mansion. Michelle. I know that name. I know it very well. But something's not right. You look different from the Michelle I remember. Because I'm not the Michelle you know. Our names simply sound the same.
Oh, that makes sense. She would never come see me.
I have a question for you. Do you have the key to the observation tower?
I do?
Would you please give it to me? I need to get into the tower.
And what do you need there?
There's someone there I need to find.
That's all?
It may not sound like much to you, but it means a great deal to me.
You're not one of her prisoners, then?
No. I came here of my own will.
To find this person?
Exactly.
Then maybe you can help me.
Help you how?
Set me free. Convince her to release me from this place. I'm begging you.
The anguish emanating from the boy's shadow is so thick, it causes me to recoil. There's a thread of dark desperation in his voice. Has he been imprisoned here for hundreds of years like Giselle?
Promise me you'll get me out of here.
Am I even equipped to judge whether that would be a good decision or not? All I know of him is his time in the mansion during the era of roses. I know nothing else of his life. I don't even know if I would be capable of keeping such a promise. Do I have the strength to save anyone other than her?
Do you absolutely need the key? You won't agree to help me without it, will you?
What?
I dropped it. Over there.
Huh? The boy is pointing to a thick bramble of roses. Despite the flowers themselves being wilted, the thorns are still sharp.
It was an accident, I swear. But I didn't want to scratch up my arm, so I left it there. It's not my fault there are so many thorns.
I really want to hit this boy. Why couldn't you have just said so?
Because I thought if I didn't have the key, then you wouldn't help me.
There's only so much I can do regardless of whether you have the key. I cannot promise you anything, nor can I be the judge of you.
I see.
I do not have enough information to make such a decision. Cheap promises and superficial kindness will only serve to destroy the both of us. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to retrieve the key.
Huh? You'll never get it out of those thorns.
I don't care if it's at the bottom of the ocean, I will have that key.
You're wasting your time.
I approach the bramble, reaching out for it with my right hand. From behind me, I can sense the boy, watching. First, I attempt to spread the tangled thorn-ridden stems so I can put my arm in without injuring myself, but they seem to be made of iron rather than plant, and my efforts prove mostly fruitless. The only opening is barely large enough to fit an arm in, and resembles the toothy mouth of a beast. Looking around the garden, I can't find anything that looks remotely useful. I guess my only option is reaching in. It's not gonna stop me. I lean down, inserting my right arm into the thorny cavern. Immediately, they begin ripping at my sleeve and gashing at my flesh. Ugh! Blood spills down my arm. I'm long since dead, no longer human, but the pain is still agonizing, still very much real. Giselle, she doesn't bleed, she doesn't feel pain. Am I not the same as her then? That doesn't matter right now. Focus on getting the damned key. Streams of crimson spread through the steel-like tangle, gnawing at my arm like a ravenous animal. Where the hell is the key? The thorny stems are twisted and layered so thick I can't see inside at all. As I dig around blindly, I start losing feeling in my arm. It's an endless deluge of pain. Deluge? That's a word that always trips me up. It's deluge, right? When I would read it, I would read deluge, but I think it's deluge. I think.
Hey, cut it out! You're gonna lose your arm.
I will not stop until I have the key.
Well, don't ask me for help.
I wasn't even considering it. I collect what remains of my gradually fading sensation and focus it into my fingers, praying even one of them will brush against the key. Damn it! But as much as I search, as much as I dig, I find nothing so much as resembling a key, which means it must be deeper than I can reach my arm. Even so, I cannot give up.
Hey,
Please, be quiet. Right now, I need to focus.
I'm sorry, I do have the key, actually.
What? You what?
I'm so sorry. It didn't look like you were willing to help, even if I gave it to you, so... Plus, she told me not to give it to anyone for any reason.
What? Hold still so I can beat you.
I didn't mean to do you any ill will.
You most certainly did.
I'll give you the key, so please have mercy.
Trembling in fear, the boy's shadow sticks out a hand, holding a key. The arm I used to dig through the thorns is so bloody and gashed I can barely look at it. But it does still function. Speedster has the shot. And so I take the key from him with my right hand. Dude, what the fuck, man?
Why couldn't you use your other hand? That's gross.
That's the idea.
You're kind of a jerk, you know.
That's a laugh coming from you. Do you have any idea how much that hurt?
I know. I'm sorry, really. But hey, you're alive, so no big deal, right? But wait. Can you actually say either of us are alive? I don't even know anymore.
I do appreciate you giving me the key, though, seeing as it seemed to be rather important to you, too.
Hey, is this person you want to get back really worth going through all this for?
She is. She's the one person who ever loved me, and she's waiting for me.
I see. You know, I had someone that meant a lot to me, too. My sister.
Which one? Michelle, you motherfucker. You motherfucker.
Which? The one with the flaxen hair, like me. If you happen to see her, do something nice for her, please.
That, I would say, is your responsibility.
Yeah, you're right.
But I'll keep it in mind.
Thanks.
In the tale I witnessed, the boy pushed his sister away. For an understandable reason, admittedly. But now he seems to bear no grudge for her. Did something else happen between them? Even if it did, I don't have time to ask about it. I'll be on my way.
All right, take care. There are 2 more keys. Watch out, though. They're not the most friendly people, and they'll probably be even more enraged locked up like this.
I appreciate the warning.
If only someone like you shown up sooner and taken the keys from us. Goodbye.
After bidding me farewell, the boy's phantom dissipates into the shadows of the rose garden. I wonder if he's gone back to mindlessly muttering his regrets. I should get going. Where are we going next, everybody? Say it with me. To the den! That's right, we're going to the den. No, we're going downstairs to the cellar. We're going beast mode. I descend the stairs, opening the cellar door. The first time I visited this room, the smell of blood from within was nearly suffocating. Now the entire house reeks of it, and I've started to go numb to the odor. There's no one here. Am I in the wrong place? I begin exploring the cellar, hoping to maybe find the key hidden away or abandoned somewhere. As I reach my hand out to investigate one area. Hey, there he is, everybody! A shadow leaps out of the thick darkness. Oh, it's so swift I have no time to react. My body freezes in place. A shadow stands before me, holding the tip of a blade mere inches from my face. A key. You have a key. I do, yes. Cold sweat trickles down my back. My voice is shaking and there's no hiding it. The shade appears to be glaring at me, though I cannot make out its face. After a few seconds, it withdraws its blade. Let me see it. The boy's key. Did he give it to you? In the rose garden, yes. Are you two acquaintances? How could that be, though? You are from a completely different era and country. Who are you? No, never mind. Who you are is irrelevant to me. Are you human now? If you are speaking of my nature, then no is the only answer I can give you. You didn't kill me, though. If you wanted to, you could easily skewer me where I stand. If that's what you want, I'd be happy to oblige. What did you come here for? For your key. I came to ask if you would give it to me. You mean to open that door? I need to get into the tower, yes. I see. I'll take it. Key 2, baby! We're speedrunning this shit. The man's shadow tosses the key at my feet. I'm not quite sure what to think. I didn't expect him to give it up so readily. What? Take it. I won't stab you in the back while you're bending over. I thought you were supposed to hold on to this at all costs. I no longer have any reason to guard that key. In the past, I might have severed your head from your shoulders the moment you mentioned it, though. What point in the past? That's a question I wish I knew the answer to. Hey, do you know why I'm here? Where this place is? When it is? Why can't I get out of here? What's happening to me? What's happened to me? What's up, Tiny King? Tell me. I have no idea what's going on, not a single goddamned idea. Neither do I. Just get out. Take the key and get out of here. Get out! I can't bring myself to say anything to the enraged shadow, so I follow his command, picking up the key and departing the cellar. I thought I was dead for a second. This makes 2, though. What could have happened between these people? The painting mentioned a past with them, and Morgana spoke of the wicked men she cursed. Does that mean they did something awful enough to earn Morgana's spite? Right now, though, I must push onward. If I'm not mistaken, the final key should be in that room. The room with the billiards table? What is billiards, anyway? I should get moving. Little Michelle quip, just for fun. How you doing, Tiny King? How's your evening going? Once I have this key, I can get into the observation tower. I'm almost certain Morgana is waiting for me there, with Giselle. So I gather up my resolve and hurry to the last room, not wanting to take even a second longer than necessary getting her back. Tiny King, I was chatting about the warm weather to you the other week. My karmic returns hit today. It's 31 degrees outside. It's absolutely freezing. It's always super cold in this office. I got a big ol' hoodie on. I can hardly believe my eyes when I step into the den. In the middle of the room is a large rectangular table. Several balls roll across its surface, and perched on one corner, looking down at the floor, is her. Giselle. Giselle! The question of why she's here never crosses my mind. All I feel is elation to see her once more. There's no room for anything else in my head. I run over to her, put my hand on her shoulder. Thank goodness you're all right, and turn her toward me. What? What? Giselle? Giselle! I shake her, causing her head to droop lifelessly. There's not a trace of light in her unmoving eyes. Oh, why? Giselle, why? Oh, say something, Giselle. Say anything, please. This can't be. You can't be. You can't be. My mind goes blank. I can't catch my breath. The world is hazy. Why? Why is Giselle? Why did I have to find her like this? Why? I swore I would do anything. I swore I would never lose you again. No. No, this can't be. A thought crosses my dazed, despair-wrought mind. It's probably nothing more than vain hope, but not a drop of blood spilled from my breast. That's right. She doesn't bleed. So this can't be her. This isn't her. Or maybe Morgana has the power to alter Giselle's very nature. Kill her with the flick of a wrist. No, I don't even want to think about it. There's no hope found down that path. All I can do is pray. Beg for her to still be alive. Or if alive isn't the right word, herself. My prayers bring me back to reality, which is when I realize there's something hard pressed against the back of my head. I hear a harsh, metallic clink. What? Ugh. A piercing bang rips through the air as I drop to the hard floor, my ears ringing painfully. Through the cloud of smoke and confusion, I see a man's silhouette. Missed. It takes several moments for me to recognize the object in his hand as a gun, not only because it's draped in shadow, but because I've never seen one with my own eyes. Had I not witnessed what they were capable of through the stories, I would not have understood how terrifying they were. Not a problem, though. I'll finish you with the next one. Now you hold still, boy. Start running around like a rat and I can't guarantee you a painless death. Wait, hold on a second. What are you trying to kill me for? 'Cause you make too much goddamn noise, that's why. Don't tell me. You're the one who... What? I turn my gaze toward the large table. Giselle isn't there. It must have been an illusion after all. The realization sends a wave of relief through me. I still have a gun in my face, though. Curious man you are. Does the table warrant your attention more than me? I have a request. Could you give me the key in your possession? That's all I need, and then I'll leave and stop making a racket. I'm not sure you understand your predicament, boy. 'Cause if you think you're in any position to be asking for favors, you're dumber than you look. First off, I don't even know what key you're talking about. I don't believe that. The other two had keys. You telling me they gave you their keys? Sounds like they really do know each other. See for yourself. I believe you should recognize these. You collecting them to enter the tower? You gonna see Morgana? There seems to be a hint of tension in the man's voice. Though I can't see his face, I can sense the waves forming within him. I brace myself for either rejection or hot lead, but the apparition gives me neither. Take me with you. What? You have the other 2 keys, don't you? Then you can open the door. Bring me to the witch. Wait, slow down. What are you planning to do when you see her? Hey, what do you think? She has to. She has to. He's gone. She has to what? What was he trying to say? On the floor where the shade stood is a new key. Curious though I am about his last words. This makes 3. I have all the keys now. Right. Sora entering Fata Morgana land. Are you trying to rile me up, Morgana? Are you enjoying yourself up there, showing me these phantoms and watching me squirm? Just you wait. I'm on my way. I give the room a brief once-over before making my way back to the chapel. Three keys. The keys fit perfectly in the openings on the lock. And when I insert the last one, it clicks open. Yeah. I stop to shoot some 9-ball before heading back towards the chapel. All 3 keys in my possession. The chain sealing the door falling to the floor. This billiards isn't half bad. I could get used to this. They're waiting beyond this door at the top of the stairs. I start pondering what I can even do in the face-off against Morgana, which sends a nervous shudder down my spine. I'm not going to back down regardless, but she is a witch, and I'm a mere human. Formerly human. I'm not a master swordsman, nor do I wield a gun. I have nothing at all with which to fight her. I still have to confront the witch, though, no matter what. As laughably reckless, as foolish as I may be, I have no other option. I place my hand on the door, preparing to climb the tower where I once spent my last breath, Giselle locked safely away in the chamber at the top. The tower where I first met the witch. No hesitation. Gulp. Another banger. I can just tell from the first chord, this song's gonna go crazy. The sound of blood streaming down the stairs echoes off the stone walls. Although I have begun growing numb to the house's otherworldly ornamentation, the sight of a seemingly endless river of blood flowing down the spiral staircase sends a chill through me. Every step I climb makes a splat. When I reach a window, I look out to see a churning reddish-black fog. Ah, yes, we have returned, Mas Floyd, to the house in Fata Morgana. How are you, buddy? How's your evening going? Now this brings me back. You, climbing these stairs alone, just like old times. Morgana, I waited so long for someone like you to show up. Someone with enough despair to resurrect me. Give her back. But now I don't see it in you. I don't feel one bit of that intense hopelessness anymore. Give her back. And here I had thought we were cut from the same cloth. Morgana, yes, I'll give her back, if you can make it to me without losing yourself. I will not give up. It doesn't matter what you do. Looking up, I can't see how far the stairs extend. It's just a gaping blackness. so I have no way of knowing for sure whether I'm getting any closer. Around and around, around and around, around and around. Just applying for college housing, holy crap, this is stressful. I'm so glad I never had to deal with that. I mean, I'm not glad I didn't go to college, but I'm glad I didn't have to pay for college. Beneath me, the blood river traces the same path in reverse. I start to wonder if the staircase even does end. Right, you unlucky lucky duck, right. I couldn't say it better myself. If I'm not just eternally retracing my own steps, but I continue climbing regardless. It's all I can do. Put one foot in front of the other and hope I make it to the top. Morgana, what is this place? What did you do to it? What is it? Why, it's the mansion you lived in for a decade, of course. You look at this and tell me it's the same house. What's with the blood everywhere? And the three shadows? Now, my dear, no need to raise your voice. And you're being impolite. One question at a time. Answer me. What is this place? Oh, that's immaterial. Even if I were to give you an answer you found satisfying, what would that knowledge do for you? Your objective is to reach the top of these stairs and rescue Giselle. Nothing more, nothing less. Isn't that right? Or by chance have you taken an interest in me, despite never once asking me about myself before? My gut tells me that without knowing what this place is, without even the briefest glimpse at its nature, I won't be able to safely get her back. Without knowing what I'm up against, I don't stand a chance. Please tell me about this mansion, Morgana. About yourself. Michelle's in the Super Mario 64 hallway where the stairs just climb forever and ever until you get enough stars, but in this case it's enough exposition. You have to collect enough exposition for the stairways to stop. Mario, yeah. What are you, Morgana? A witch. No, that's not what I'm asking. Why do you have the powers you do? Because I'm a witch. What the fuck do you think? Yes, I get it. Humans feel the need to attach names to things and phenomena they don't understand. I understand that feeling very well. Which is why I'm sure you'll be rather disappointed when I reveal the truth. What do you mean? What I mean is, I'm an ordinary human. That's not possible. You expect me to believe a human created this illusion? Then are you saying I'm a magician or a wizard like you might see in a fairy tale? I would believe that over you being a human. Think back then, would you? Recall our time together. Did I ever once use magic? Did I control fire or wind? Did I create illusions? No, I did none of that, because I could not. To you, when you were alive, I suppose you could say, I was not but a simple ghost. A rather mischievous but otherwise powerless spirit. And I was nothing more to those three men either. The witch Morgana was never anything but a wretched phantom haunting this old house. But then, how do you explain this? Michelle, my dear, we're not the same beings we once were. We're different than we were in the realm of light, the era of the living. You figured out that much, haven't you? That you're already dead? Yes, I know. I knew I couldn't possibly be alive, of course, yeah, I know. Yet you still view this world through the lens of the living. You make no effort to see it as the land of the dead. Tell me, why would you think that the realm of the living and the dead are the same? though the worlds behind each door were so vibrant. The mansion itself never had any color. They were the memories of the past, of the land of the living, of times forever lost to us. Our lives have already come to an end, my dear. Every last soul within these walls is dead. This is the world that lies beyond the end. It is my world. This is the afterlife. Why get caught up in the minutia? None of us have a future, so what reason is there for you to desperately obsess over taking Giselle back? Just like you, she's long since dead. She's a walking corpse. It's nothing I didn't already know, but hearing her say it, it's like a kick to the gut. Dead or alive, she still lives on within this house, and my spirit found its way back too. Why then should I not wish for her to have a future? No matter what form it may take, no matter if my choices erase her from this world entirely. Having seen what lies beyond the door in her heart, what happened in all those hundreds of years, I could never let her remain here with you, trapped in this world bereft of light, drifting aimlessly for all eternity. So determined you feel the need to raise your voice. But you're not going to budge on that point, I see. I ask you this again, Morgana. Please, tell me about yourself. How did you become a witch? How did you end up attached to this house? I want to hear your story. You honestly want to know about me? I do now. Yes. But not for me. For her, right? Don't be shy now. It's the truth, isn't it? Besides, if you did say it was for me, not her, oh, I might die of laughter. As you wish. You have seen many tales of people's lives since arriving here, and now you shall see mine. Though I ask you this, will you writhe in despair with me? Will you endure maddening agony for me? Will you know pain enough to make you howl? Will you face despair again and again and again? As I said before, if that's what you want from me, well, let me tell you something though, my dear. It will not be as easy to watch as you imagine. Now that you've reclaimed yourself, you will be able to feel all my pain as if it were your own, to resonate with it. Resonate with it. You no longer have your little guardian with you either. My guardian. She was always protecting me. You'll have a wonderful time, I'm sure. It's a tale that could have only taken place in that era of miracles and spirituality. Wondrous and weird, senseless and stupid. Hopelessly tragic. Will you watch it with me? As soon as the final word leaves her mouth, I'm engulfed in darkness, not even given a moment to brace myself. The tower's stairs crumble beneath me. My feet have nowhere to go. As I'm being battered by the roaring blood river, my consciousness melds with another. Oh, fuck, baby. Oh, fuck, baby. I need a tea refill. Let me see if Minky Moo can make that happen for me. Tea refill, please. You can make it happen? Let's go. You want to just take this mug? Don't call me a doofus. Don't you dare, in front of everyone, call me a doofus. Whew, okay. Here's this. Just put a tea bag in it, let the spoon just sit on top of it, and then cover it with this. Here goes nothing. I carry within me the child of God. That is where it all began. The words of one foolish woman determined the course of my entire life. Before I was even born, my fate was decided. Did her claim come from faith? Was it her way of escaping reality? Did she do it for money or fame? I don't know.
I've been visited by an angel of the Lord.
The village where she lived had suffered from years of poor harvest. It had been months since the last rain, and all the villagers prayed desperately to be blessed with succor.
I am with child, though I have known no man.
So proclaimed the pregnant woman in the midst of the drought. And on the day of my birth, the very moment I let out my first cry, a heavy rain fell down upon the village. The storm quenched the parched earth, nourishing the crops and saving the village. The villagers were astounded, for they had thought the drought would never end. As plump drops of rain poured down upon the village, they gathered around newborn me in exultation. Ah, she is the child of God! Perhaps there would be more wonder in claiming I had magical powers. Perhaps it would make a better story if I were to say there were higher forces involved. But all these years later, here is what I truly think. It was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, an unbelievably fortunate accident for my mother and the village, and an indescribably unfortunate accident for myself.
I am with child, though I have known no man.
As if that's even possible. Maybe she had fooled around with a man who had gone and abandoned her, and she spouted those lies to convince herself it had never happened. None of the village men made any claim to be my father. Perhaps he was someone else's husband, and as such he couldn't reveal himself, as adultery is a sin in the eyes of God. The girl they were praising as the child of God was indeed not more than the ordinary daughter of a wretched woman. At the time, though, I thought differently. I believed my mother's words, convinced I was a saint, and it gave me a sense of duty, of purpose, rather than superiority. As the daughter of God, I believed it was my responsibility to help anyone in need. So every day I prayed. I asked my Father what I could do, what I was meant to do. Not everyone is equally good, however. There will always be someone who lends their ear to the devil's whispers. One man claimed I was the daughter of a charlatan. He shouted for all to hear, "If you are really the child of God, then perform a miracle for us." Could he have been any more unreasonable? Miracles are neither magic nor parlor tricks. They are realized through the power of faith. A lowly villager has no place demanding God prove his own divinity. It is the height of arrogance. But the man refused to heed my words, so, having no other choice, I contemplated what I could do to show him that I was, indeed, a saint. And blood was the spark of my inspiration. Michelle, the time when I lived, and the time when you lived, were not so different. Our views and beliefs about the world are very much the same. Thank you so much. Love ya. So you should understand that in our time, blood was seen as unclean. It was a dreadful thing, ridden with diseases, which was why we drained the blood from animals and purified the flesh before consuming it. But being a saint, my blood would have been different. Like the blood of the saints who came before me, mine would be blessed. I believed it would be able to cleanse people's impurities. For my demonstration, I chose an elderly woman afflicted with a terrible disease. She was on her deathbed, and no one thought she would live for longer than another day or two. Who's going to be the first to say what this is and what this reminds them of? The woman was overjoyed when I came to visit her. Sincerely believing me to be a holy servant of the Lord, she gathered all the strength she could to muster, to climb from her bed and kiss my feet. I felt an intensely deep love for this woman. Placing my hands upon her cheeks, I said with all the kindness in my heart, "My beloved sister, partake of my blood." The woman agreed without a glimpse of hesitation, and so I pricked the tip of my finger with a knife and let the blood drip into her mouth. Within 3 days, her health had improved enough for her to get out of bed, unassisted. Seeing that, no one in the village doubted my powers any longer. In fact, the man who had once accused me of being the daughter of a charlatan was subsequently punished for his sins. He received much-deserved retribution for challenging the daughter of God, for mocking her. But of course, being a saint, I forgave the man. He, in turn, repented and changed his ways, worshipping me as the true child of God. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was ecstatic, utterly elated. I felt like I was on top of the world and I reveled in it. The villagers showered me with adulation. They revered me, the daughter of God. Anyone who didn't was punished. And on top of that, my blood could cause miracles. Tell me, do you look down on me for feeling the way I did? The actual child of God would never let herself be consumed by such base emotions, would she? But if you would give me a chance, I would like to explain myself. I was but a young girl at the time. And to a child, her mother is the world. Anything she says is the absolute truth. So when my mother's claims so happened to coincide with a lucky miracle, well, my young mind was set in stone. I was a saint. My blood could heal the sick, and nothing would convince me otherwise. After all, I was but a girl of 6 years old. It's not my place to decide whether my blood truly had miraculous powers or not. And if you think it did, then it did. And if you think it was all happenstance, then so it was. Miracles are brought about by faith. So the elderly woman who was healed was done so by the power of her own belief. Baseless hope and desire can at times make the otherwise impossible a reality. You understand just how major a role religion played in our time, don't you, Michelle? Especially as someone whose life was taken from him in the name of God. And you understand how powerful word of mouth can be as well, don't you? It didn't take long for word of the miracle-performing child of God to spread. Travelers from faraway lands came to our village, all in search of aid. Driven by a mixture of elation and duty, I gave my blessings unto every pilgrim who sought them. I gave them my blood, yes. My young hands, perpetually covered in wounds, running out of skin on my fingers, I cut the back of my hands, my palms, my wrists. Before long, they had turned into swollen, carved up, black and red horrors, and so I kept them wrapped in cloth at all times. The only time I uncovered them was to give blood to those who sought it. My lacerated hands were, in no uncertain terms, gruesome and unsightly, but the believers who came to see me all wept at my selfless sacrifice. And so I came to cherish those wounds. There were some for whom no miracle took place, but whenever that would happen, the villagers would come out and say, "The daughter of God is not to blame, you simply lack sufficient faith." Thus, Such incidents had no negative effect on my reputation as a saint. For 3 years, I continued doling out blessings. One day, while I was offering a prayer, my mother let slip her discontent. "Why must you hand out miracles for nothing? Why must you give strangers grace? We should be getting compensated. We deserve remuneration." That's a word I've never seen before. "If we charge just a little bit for each blessing, we could be living so much more comfortably." I was dumbfounded. How could the mother of a saint say such things? Helping people was my divine calling, and she expected payment. I nearly wept, hearing my mother preoccupied with such worldly desires. So I explained to her how important this work was. I taught her that we were not to covet material wealth, that we were to dedicate our lives to service of our fellow man. "You're right, my dear saint," she said, understanding. And I believed her. I fell asleep that night convinced she truly understood, and that there would be no more problems. Gonna do a little tea sip. A little tea sip here. Ooh. This is a nice song. Music in this game is so good, like across the board. We all know it. I'm not saying anything that's surprising. Oh wow, it's hot. Yeah, it's hot. But the next day, I was sold off. Men I had never seen before carried me by the arms and tossed me into a carriage. Confused in panic, I stuck my head out, searching for my mother. Off in the shadow of the house, I saw her with a strange man, accepting a bag of coins. The carriage rocked back and forth, as it rolled along a dirt road. Shaking and bouncing within it, I struggled with overwhelming grief and despair. It was, perhaps, the first time in my life I had felt such a powerful emotion. I didn't know what I felt so much despair over, though. Obviously, it was over my present predicament, but I wasn't sure what about it hurt me the most. Was it that I had been pawned off like a slave? Was it that my mother, the mother of a saint, had been so blinded by money? Was it that the villagers had watched in silence as a disciple of the Lord was thrown into a carriage? What's up, Zig? How are you? Hope your night's going well. Or was it that I, daughter of God, lamented my misfortune like a mortal? I decided it was a trial. My Father, the Lord God, was testing my worthiness of being his daughter. So I choked back my urge to cry and sat there in silent contemplation. For almost 3 weeks was I rocked around in the carriage. The coachman treated me well enough, but I'm certain it was only because he didn't want his precious cargo dying before he could deliver it. He did not by any means think of me as a child of God. The 3rd week, the carriage arrived at a city. It was much larger than the village I had grown up in, with many, many more people crowding the streets. Something about them felt different, too. They all spoke in a tongue foreign to me, which was when I realized I was far, far away from home. I was delivered to a lavishly decorated mansion of the region's lord. Brightly colored flowers bloomed wildly in the garden as guests laughed and ate extravagant meals. And in addition to them, there were probably 4 times as many slaves moving about the grounds. Getting a range of looks from everyone we passed, from smartly dressed men to scrawny, emaciated servants, I was led to the Lord's chambers. The Lord was surrounded by beautiful women. Perhaps they were slaves, perhaps they were prostitutes. I couldn't tell. Among them were some girls hardly older than me. They all wore thin swathes of cloth, barely covering themselves at all. The Lord looked me up and down, and with a laugh, he said, "Welcome, daughter of God. You'll be performing miracles for me now. Miracles are not something to be performed for one single person's benefit, I replied, shocked and furious he had just said something so utterly blasphemous. In response, he said, I bought you. You are my property, and you have no right to an opinion. But I wouldn't have any of it. I entreated him to give up his indulgent lifestyle and devote himself to the service of the Lord. But the more I pleaded, the deeper the creases on his face grew. Thinking back on it now, it was hardly surprising. A 9-year-old girl was scolding the most powerful man in the region. I believed it was my duty, and that I was only doing what was right, but he surely saw it as an incredible arrogance. So the Lord forced his will upon me. He bound my hands and feet and cut me, without my permission, filling a goblet with my blood, passing it around to his guests. A saint's blood and good fortune to all. That was when I realized the Lord was only interested in the approval of others. He reveled in their envy as he pranced about, showing off his curious new toy, me. He didn't need my miracles. Neither he nor any of his guests were afflicted with disease or misfortune. They were all richly blessed. Every time he threw a banquet, he drained me of my blood. It became nearly impossible to find a spot on either of my arms that wasn't a swollen, reddish-black gash. And soon, because my arms weren't providing enough blood, the cutting spread to my legs. Dude, this is like a Berserk sub-chapter side story. Like, Guts would pull up to this village, this castle town, and just let loose, slaying the king and everybody else. It's total, like, Berserk side story vibes. Where's Guts when you need him? I lived in a haze of half-consciousness. Honestly, I'm amazed it didn't kill me, though perhaps the Lord was simply taking care not to take more than my body could spare. Watching the wealthy partygoers laugh and sip my blood through bleary eyes, another wave of despair came over me. My miracles, my blood, were not meant to be an appetizer at a feast. They were meant for the sick and for the poor. But despite my wishes, the Lord persisted to squeeze me dry day in and day out for his own enjoyment. For a while, I was convinced it was all God's test, that it was part of his plan for me, his daughter. That if I could make it through this trial, I would be allowed to go back to helping people. That man would celebrate my success, envy me, worship me. That sinners would face punishment, that divine retribution would be delivered unto all who had wronged me, a saint. Would anyone have believed that scarred and bloodied girl tied up on the floor in the banquet hall was a saint? Unlikely. This was no charitable gathering, but an unholy Sabbath. Perhaps it was caused by my corrupted spirit. Perhaps it was my heart's way of crying for help. Or perhaps it was the devil himself giving me my witch's mark. No matter what the cause, during one of the bloody banquets, I underwent a transformation. I was half-conscious as usual when one of the guests pointed at me and shouted something. His face went pale, as if he were afraid, which I found quite curious. The Lord then approached me, grabbing me by the hair and lifting my head. He yelled something, but I was far too gone to be able to make out anything he was saying. Suddenly, I found myself released from my bonds, but my body, grown so weak from being tied up for so long, I didn't have the strength to hold myself up, and so I collapsed to the floor. I was still trying to figure out what was happening when the Lord drew a sword, raising it high above his head. His words in that moment reached me with perfect clarity. You're a damned witch wearing a saint's skin. A witch? Why was he calling me a witch? I was the holy daughter of God. I had certainly never made a pact with the devil. What could have given him that idea? What was in store for me now? Had God performed some kind of miracle for him? Dozens of thoughts and questions floated through my mind as death hung over me. I couldn't comprehend anything, and so I didn't feel any fear or anger at my impending death. I was simply curious. What had happened to me? But before I had a chance to find that answer, the Lord swung down his blade. Without warning, without any time to prepare, the darkness drains away. And a second later, I crash into the stairs. Hard. Right at my ear, I can hear the hiss of the river of blood. The world fades in and out of view, giving way to very real images of a past I never lived. Okay, I can let up for a second here. What's up, Zake? I think you've been here for one of these streams before, but we're, like 20, maybe 30 now. Maybe we've crossed the 30-hour mark of this super, super long, super, super intense visual novel. It's very good. Thank you so much for being here. I shouted out Zake a moment ago. If you guys aren't following Zake, you should be. You should be. Zake's a very lovely dude. And even earlier on, shouted out Moss Floyd, who similarly, say what's up to Floyd. For everybody else that's here hanging out, thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. We're so deep in this that I apologize if I'm not making like immediate reactions to comments or things or getting back to you guys. I think that a lot of us that are really enraptured in this over 2.5 month long journey are deep in the shit. And so we're in progress mode for sure. But this story is incredible. And for everybody that's maybe new here, Jack, I don't know how much you know of the channel, having only seen the highlights. I don't know if you've read the about tabs or anything. I play 3 games at any given time: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Currently, we're working through Sweet Home by Capcom on the Famicom, the precursor to the Resident Evil franchise, which has been brilliant. I'm doing Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six on a retro PC that I have right next to my computer here that runs Windows 2000, as well as the house in Fata, Morgana. Yeah, I'm GoatedQuest, everybody. This is my little break to say what's up before we dive right back into this. It's been great. And I appreciate I appreciate you, Zake. Man, it blows my mind, right? This is a fucking dense ass story. This would be like I'm sitting here opening up, I don't know, Moby Dick. And it's like we're on page like 375. And I'm just opening it up and I start reading for the night for 3 hours. And people just come in and just settle down, cozy up, and relax. And it's such an incredible thing to me. I appreciate it so much. I'm going to get back into it here, because while we may be on page 375, this is like a 550 page book. So, in the whole scheme of things. What's up, Susie? So with that being said, we got a lot more ground to cover. Thanks, everybody. I can practically feel the fire in the eyes of that Mad Blood Banquet's guests. I just quick saved, just in case. I realized I hadn't done that in an hour and a half. My vision distorts. I can't regain my focus. Whose blood is this streaming down the stairs? Is it hers? Is it mine? Who am I? A saint? A witch? Is what I'm seeing through a lens of clarity or madness? Wait, no. No, I'm not her. I am Michelle. No one else. It hurts, doesn't it? It's hard to breathe, your chest is on fire, your vision is blurry. It's dark, it's lonely, it's scary. It's frustrating, disheartening, exasperating, isn't it? What you're feeling is exactly the pain I felt. I reach my hand out in a plea for help, which is when I see something I can hardly believe. Oh wow, cool. Both of my arms are covered in gashes, blood flowing from them without end. The raw flesh beneath my skin has been exposed to the open air. All I can bring myself to do is scream. That pain, her horrible past, is doing everything in its power to break me. That 9-year-old girl's sickening experiences are twisting and constricting and crushing me. Why is this happening to you? Are you really that slow, my dear? You're empathizing with my pain. You're just that kind-hearted, Michelle. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? That you would make your way to me. Then surely this won't be enough to do you in. Of course it won't. Mustering up every last bit of strength I can, I begin crawling up the stairs. The red river beats against my open wounds, stinging painfully. The simple act of lifting an arm or a leg is almost unbearably agonizing. The blood dripping from my lacerated arms mixes with the blood already soaking the tower. So this is the pain Morgana suffered. Do you despise everyone, Morgana? Did your resentment at your mother's betrayal, at the people who came seeking your blood, at the Lord who took your life, turn into a hatred for all mankind? Your perception of me is still incorrect, Michelle. My grudge is only against a select few. Think about it, my dear. Of the thousands, millions, billions of people living on this planet, my world is comprised of but a minuscule fraction of that. Hatred for all mankind? No. What I feel is not nearly so nebulous. Although, if I had died, still believing I was a saint, maybe I wouldn't have such a well-defined mission. Are you saying the Lord didn't kill you? Oh my, did you actually think that was the end of my tale? Despite all your big talk, you're afraid of having to suffer through any more of that, aren't you? But you're the one who said you wouldn't give in. So go on. Know my pain without losing your mind. Once again, my surroundings crumble. I have no say. I have no chance to object before I'm dragged back to that repulsive banquet. I reach out, stretching my hand as far as it will reach, but all I can grab is darkness. My bloody body sinks back into the abyss. The pain becomes more than just a memory, eroding away at my consciousness. You're a damned witch, wearing a saint's skin. Maybe if I had died then, I wouldn't have become the witch you know now, but that's all conjecture. Theorizing about what could have happened is an exercise in futility. But no, I did not die that day. Brought together by constant mistreatment, the Lord's slaves chose that moment to start their revolt. When he swung down his blade, someone bumped into him, and it was knocked off its course. I didn't have the strength to get to my feet, so I simply watched the chaos unfold before my hazy eyes. It never even occurred to me that I should try to escape. At some point during the riot, a young man, one of the slaves, grabbed me by my bloody, limp arm and led me out of the Lord's manor. The young man brought me to a slum, a place where the people banded together in their hardship, barely scraping together enough to eat every day, let alone pay the taxes demanded of them. By the time we had arrived at a small brothel located a ways into the slum, the fog was starting to clear from my mind. I have like a burp stuck in my chest. I can feel it. It's like it's making it hard to talk for long. I knew where we were, and feeling the gazes of those scantily clothed women, I trembled. In a sense, that was possibly the most frightened I had ever been in my life, despite everything else I had been through. The idea that I had fallen so far, I would have to become a prostitute, scared me to death. After all, I was a saint, and saints were supposed to retain their purity. Spreading my legs for any man who gave me enough coins would shatter my very identity. As all that was going through my mind, I probably shouted no in protest, because the slave gave me an exasperated look and told me he hadn't brought me here to become a prostitute. He said he knew someone here, someone I could trust, and that she would give me a room. I had trouble believing him, though. I couldn't trust the word of a prostitute, someone who valued money more than her own body. It was all a trap, I was sure. One day they would tell me I had to work, and nothing he said would convince me otherwise. Apparently sensing my mistrust, the slave gave me an apologetic frown, handed me a mirror, and said, "Even if I did, you couldn't get any work looking like that." I couldn't believe what I saw. It couldn't be my face. Oh, it had to be an illusion. There was no way. That was not the face of a saint. It couldn't be. It wasn't real. It wasn't possible. Patches of skin had fallen off my face, exposing the raw red flesh beneath. Looked quite similar to what had been done to my arms and legs, except my face had never been cut. Looking at myself in the mirror, even I doubted my own sainthood. The thing in my reflection was a hellish abomination. It was the twisted face of a witch. And although I was shocked by what I saw, at the same time it answered several lingering questions. It explained why the Lord and his guests had panicked at the sight of me, and it also explained why he had said I was a witch wearing a saint's skin. Over the course of the dozens of banquets I had participated in, my face must have mutated, twisted into this ugly, sickening, monstrous thing. The sight of what I had become sapped the last bit of willpower from me. Not because I was particularly fond of my face or thought myself especially beautiful, but because it crushed me to see everything saintly about me crumble away. Test from God or otherwise, I didn't have the strength left to attempt to overcome it. Deciding I would rather be dead than struggle any longer, I begged the slave to kill me. Taking one's own life was a sin, and if I did that, I would not be able to return to my father's side. And I wanted to ask him why I had been put through such tribulation. But the young man refused. He said, completely missing my intention, that if I persevered, good fortune would eventually find me. He said that if I lived on, I would eventually have a chance to get my payback. I had no such worldly concerns, though, but if no one would take my life, well, I had no choice but to live. I despised life at the brothel. The men who came to buy their services were disgusting buffoons, the kind of people who would think they could deceive God. And the women fawning over them, just as repulsive. That said, I had nowhere else to go, which meant I was forced to suffer that sickening place. But by the time a year or so had passed, my feelings about it had changed. The women of the brothel took good care of me, treating me like a sister. At first, it was just irritating. I was a saint, and how could a saint have prostitutes for sisters? But over time, I got to know them better, and grew to appreciate their circumstances and hardships. Despite barely having enough money to keep food on the table, whenever they had a little bit to spare, they would use it to purchase medicine, ointments to apply to my arms, legs, and face. And as a result of their generosity, my arms and legs started looking almost human, but nothing had any effect on my face. Occasionally, the slave would drop in to check on me. The other men thought me ghastly and wouldn't get anywhere near me, but he was different. Every time he visited, he would say, "One day I'll show you the world." And to tell you the truth, I was beginning to grow attached to it all. My time at the brothel was probably, all things considered, one of the brighter chapters of my life. There I was neither a saint nor witch, but an ordinary human girl. And for the first time, I felt like my life had meaning beyond my assumed divine purpose. I was even beginning to feel kind of happy. And with each passing day, my intractable worldview was gaining a little flexibility. Perhaps I could perform miracles, but that didn't necessarily mean I had to be the daughter of God or a saint. Maybe I was just a regular person who happened to possess some unusual abilities. Ridiculous, isn't it? Despite coming to accept my humanity, I refused to let go of my miraculous powers. They were the last thing protecting what I thought of as myself. But to me at the time, it felt like a very dramatic change of heart. 3 years after the revolt at the Lord's Manor, I had my 12th birthday, for which they threw me a little dinner party. The women all pitched in to bake me treats, and the young slave man was there too. I was happy. I thought that if life could continue on like this, I was fine with not going back to being a saint. But for some reason, happiness always seems to slip away as soon as you've got your hands around it. No one sincerely wants to lose it, so why must they? I certainly didn't mind not being miserable. Let me tell you what happened that night. I'm just gonna preemptively hit one of these. Whenever I read something that says, "Let me tell you what happened that night." On the night of my birthday celebration, bandits attacked the brothel. Now, bandits were hardly a rarity in that time, so everyone was always on the lookout, and we never went out at night. They wouldn't stop at robbing you either. They were armed with blades and would frequently kill their targets, if necessary. But, cautious as we were helpless against a direct raid. The brothel fell into a panic, screams echoing in the night. The customers were carved up and left for dead, the women bound and stowed away to be sold. My peaceful world shattered in an instant. And the next thing I knew, I was some slave trader's merchandise. I don't know what became of the prostitutes who cared for me or the slave who brought me to them. I assume the women were sold and the young man slaughtered. But regardless, I found myself being rocked around in the back of a carriage once more. The carriage packed so tight you could barely see the floor, and it smelled like death. Sweat, urine, feces, every foul odor imaginable compressed into a tiny space. There were both men and women there, nearly all of them muttering or groaning or weeping. Everyone was young, ripe to be put to work. It didn't take me long to realize what fate awaited these people, and me. And when I did, I just sat there in silence, Then, for the first time, I cried. I was experiencing, I believe, a very human emotion. I was sad. Hurt that I had been taken away from a place where I was happy, from the women at the brothel and from that young man. It crushed me. And no longer did I wonder why such a thing was happening to the holy daughter of God. Something about my tears must have seemed strange to him, because one man saw me and said, "Why are you crying?" He was a curious man. To start, he looked very different from anyone else. The color of his skin, the length of his nose, the shape of his eyes. Everything about him was new and unusual. Hesitantly, I replied, "I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me." The man fell silent, looking as though he was deep in thought. I had no idea why he had asked me that, but something about him made me uncomfortable, so I couldn't bring myself to ask. Several hours later, the man suddenly stood up. The guards had no patience for anyone stepping out of line, and they didn't look like they would hesitate to kill us either. So, unsurprisingly, one at the back of the carriage drew his sword and pointed it at the man. What was surprising, though, was what happened next. The man, his hands shackled like the rest of us, leapt for the guard, slamming his fists into his face and stealing his sword. Let's fucking go. The entire carriage was in shock. The guards, too stunned to effectively react, so they were quickly cut down. And because the one-man uprising had taken place between cities, there was no one the slave traders could ask for help before they were slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, it was all over, and there was nothing human about what I had witnessed. If I had to describe it, I would say it was though a wild beast had attacked. The man ruffled through the slave trader's clothes until he found the keys, which he brought to me, ordering I unshackle him. And so I did as he commanded. Once they had had enough time to process what had happened, the would-be slaves applauded. Their wretched souls had been saved. And for a moment, I believed so too. When the man's hands were free, he rolled his shoulders a couple times, made sure everything was in place, and then he began his massacre. Screams of agony filled the carriage as he ran his sword through the helpless men and women packed inside it. Blood and guts were splattered against every surface, and those who tried to escape did not get far before being mercilessly skewered. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I was frozen in place, not out of fear, but because my mind had shut down. I couldn't make sense of what was happening, so my mind rejected it. And with my brain having given up, my body was no more than a lifeless puppet. In short order, all the slaves were dead, and I was sitting in a pool of blood, staring at the man. He pointed his blade at me, and with a little smirk, said, "Why didn't you run?" In turn, I asked him, "Why did you kill them?" The smile vanished from his face, and after a quiet few moments of pondering, he replied, "Because I felt like it." "And why haven't you killed me yet?" I asked, to which he gave a curt, "I don't know," then withdrew his blade and wandered off into the distance. And then I was all alone, surrounded by corpses. I glanced down, and half of someone's face was looking back up at me. Damn. Wrapped in absolute darkness, warm blood spills onto my cheeks, my hair, my skin. Chunks of human flesh rain down on me. Make it stop. There's no end to the deluge. The smell of death fills the air. I'm struck with a wave of nausea so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. But when my mouth opens to vomit, blood pours into it. Nasty. Ah! No, let go of me! Dead bodies grab at my ankles, dragging me down. To where? Hell? Or the mountain of corpses? Now do you understand that there was a time, if but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions? But I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my Daughter of God shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death. I can't say anything in response. I can't form words. I feel what she experienced, the massacre she witnessed, the limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age, it's enough to drive me mad. The fact that a 12-year-old girl had to experience something so unspeakable devastates me. Tell me, my dear, do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? If you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and my despair with me, won't you? The witch's cackle echoes through the pile of bodies. There's not a speck of light, and hideous death lingers everywhere. Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down into a deep, dark ocean, an ocean of blood. Now, on with the story. I was at a complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city because I knew there was no one left who would take me in. There was only the Lord, who had bound me and drained me of my blood. So I wandered the roads, no destination in mind, and nothing to defend myself but the clothes on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance, I saw a lake. So driven by my thirst, I turned my unsteady feet toward the water, not caring that it took me off the main road. And it turned out that was the correct choice, because there was a small cottage beside the lake, smoke rising from the chimney, telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked on the door. No one answered. The door wasn't locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open, and beyond it I found an old woman sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch, by trade, that is. It appeared she had a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried, powdered leaves, crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. The woman looked as though she was asleep. Presumably, she had passed away of old age, for there was no sign bandits had been rooting through the cottage, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over at the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. Do you think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go. and the owner of the cozy cottage was no longer of this world. There was no reason I couldn't fill the home in her stead, was there? I deserved to have somewhere I felt comfortable and everything I'd been through, didn't I? And so I took up residence in the old witch's cottage and remained there until my 16th year. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had no trust for people. I shut them out, building high walls around myself. After such a tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself, to keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travelers would on occasion pay the old witch's cottage a visit, seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack the door open, telling them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food, never showing my face. One day, a young man showed at the cottage. "My sister has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine." He was very soft-spoken, and there was a distinct kindness in his voice, which I thought unusual, curious. What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expressions did he make as he spoke? To satisfy that curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the crack in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing, flaxen hair, and upon seeing me, he didn't flinch back in disgust. He smiled. According to him, his younger sister had fallen gravely ill, and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. The medicines I gave him too had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. He wanted nothing more than to relive even the slightest bit of his sister's suffering. And moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to do anything I could to help. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would ask not only for medicine, but to go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me, despite my horrifying appearance. Should I do it? Should I do the...
It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. You've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline?
He said with a smile, taking me by the hand. We spoke as we circled the lakeside, his voice always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through a crack in the walls. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything, and whenever he did, he was at his brightest, almost melancholy. The young man had been a member of a noble house, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden.
I'll take anything at this point to make her better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one.
That word, muttered beneath his breath, sparked my memory. True speedster. I was a saint. My blood had healing properties, and I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help, and who deserved it more than this kind-hearted young man's sister? So I decided to tell him what I really was, that my blood had miraculous powers, that it had saved people, that the moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end, that I had been known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything, and he believed it all. He led me to his house, where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. She was a sweet little girl, with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. It was touching to see the two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them, and so I made a new cut on my arm, which had healed considerably thanks to the slave and the women of the brothel, and let the girl drink of my blood. Neither of them had any doubts of my sainthood, and because they believed, a miracle occurred. The flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like, for once, I had actually saved someone's life. The only issue was, she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed. I was deeply perplexed by this. A miracle had undoubtedly taken place, but it was only temporary. Now, though, I believe I can explain what had happened. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her condition worsened, the young man came to request more, and never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered her my services. Over time, though, the hope in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on fewer walks, and he became hesitant to look me in the eye. I assumed it was out of discomfort, out of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood, but I don't think his concerns were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean in our time, and not only was I giving mine away, I was having his sister imbibe it. Looking at it that way, it would hardly be a surprise for him or anyone else to think what I was doing depraved. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening up. That was what I got for letting his kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place, but regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. No one else. Just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me, I would continue offering her my blood, and I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. The young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had let into my walls. So as usual, I took the man's request from behind the cottage door. But I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking.
Are you the witch with the miracle blood?
First, how did he know my blood had powers? Second, why had he called me a witch and not a saint? Third, why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage? I told the man he had to leave, that I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said, I am in need of your blood. Could you not spare a little? My blood was for the sick and the needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. And I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, about the fountain of blood. The man drenched in crimson, wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another such rampage. But instead, he gave a simple, as you say, and went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief, which is when I realized tears were rolling down both my cheeks, like an ordinary girl. 3 days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up to my cottage.
I'm sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over.
Those 2 sentences were like a light shining from above. I wanted to talk to him, too. I wanted to take a walk around the lake. listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more, and I wanted to tell him about the terrible man who had been there a few days earlier, about how scared I had been. I wanted to tell him it was me. I wanted him to tell me it would be all right. I want to talk to you too. I want to talk to you too, I said, opening the door without a second thought. Oh no. The light of the sun was so bright, all I could make out was his silhouette. I couldn't see the look on his face or the look in his eyes. A gentle breeze blew past, and my mind froze. How could this be happening? What did it mean? Why? How? What was that man doing, standing behind him? Why was he carrying a sword? Why was he coming into my house, and why did he swing it down, severing my arm? I was in a daze. I couldn't make sense of anything. I didn't want to. My left arm fell to the floor before I even knew what was happening, and then my legs gave out. The pain, searing and unbearable, came a few moments later, as I was lying in an ever-expanding pool of my own blood. I did something then that I hadn't done before, that I had resisted doing, no matter how much blood the Lord had stolen from me. I screamed. It was a hideous, visceral noise, a sound I had never thought a saint could make, the same ear-splitting howl the slaves had made as the man butchered them. I writhed, I wailed, I wept, I crawled across the floor through my own blood. I begged, and I begged, and I begged for my life. The man walked over, picked up my severed arm, and then, shockingly, tossed it to the kind-hearted young man, after which he said, "That's your share. Should last you long enough." Share? What did he mean by share? What was he talking about? Why had he given him my arm, and why had he taken it? Why was he talking like they knew each other? Why? I had spared blood for him when he asked, hadn't I? So why was he doing this? Was cutting my arm off and stealing it easier on his conscience than simply asking? You understand how I felt, don't you? You can put yourself in my shoes, can't you? The young man refused to look me in the eye. Holding my bloody arm in his trembling hands, he fled from the cottage as quickly as his legs would allow. The man walked over and picked me up. I had neither the strength nor willpower to resist. Holding me in his arms, he began to speak, telling me things I didn't want to know, things I didn't want to hear, but he didn't care. "Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church." Don't take it personally. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who wouldn't feel a bit of spite after being put through such torture? How was I supposed to let that slide? No one's that much of a saint. My trust had been betrayed, and I was supposed to turn the other cheek? A man had barged into my home uninvited and cut off my arm, and I was supposed to smile and take it. Is there anyone, anywhere, who doesn't feel even the slightest bit of hatred ever? Is there anyone in this world who could just laugh and brush off this level of abuse? Tell me, is there? How could I not hold a grudge? How could I not despise them? How could I possibly forgive them? Tell me, please. Tell me, how could I? She needs the money. I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer. If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her. The Lord? Oh, why him again? Why couldn't he leave me alone? After trying to kill me during one of his blood sabbats, why was he after my blood once more? Had he learned it really did have miraculous powers and decided he wanted me back? You get to be the sacrifice to keep her church from collapsing, to keep her world from collapsing.
Sacrifice? Excuse me, what? And what's all this about keeping her church from collapsing? You murdered a carriage full of innocent people and you're trying to protect a church? Are you out of your mind? Churches are where people go to commune with God, to speak with my Father. How dare you soil those sanctified grounds with your filthy hands, you beast! It's insulting. It's sacrilegious, repulsive. Just what do you think we are?
So don't take it personally, witch.
I'm not a witch. I'm a saint. I was a saint. My blood exists to do the Lord's work, not to satisfy the avarice of men. So why is this happening to me? The man brought me back to the city, but instead of taking me to the Lord's manor, he brought me to a church on the city's outskirts. Though, to be honest, it looked more like an estate than a church. The church also served as a hospital, offering free care to the less fortunate children, the poor, and the infirm. That was when I learned why he said they had needed money. The owner of the church offered unconditional assistance to anyone who came. Even when food and supplies ran low, they would ration their own in order to keep helping others. So as a result, the church was perpetually on the verge of collapse. The church was run by a woman, something exceedingly rare for the time. There were no priests. All management was handled by a single nun, who everyone referred to as the Saintess. I was the saint. Why was this woman who didn't have the ability to perform miracles being worshipped like she did? Why did the people of this city idolize her? Why were their smiles all directed at her? Why was I not in her place? The man carried me to the top of the observation tower, and it was there that I had my reunion with the Lord. I was to spill my blood for the people of the city, but also for the Lord's profit. He was not offering free aid, but selling it as medicine. He claimed it was a miracle elixir, telling no one it was actually my blood. It was mixed with a beautiful red wine, and drinking it would cure you of any ailment. If they knew it was actually the blood of a witch, they would think it unclean. They would fear it. I remained imprisoned for a long, long time. In the beginning, the swordsman guarded me, though before long, the flaxen-haired young man showed up as well. Presumably, one severed arm wasn't enough to keep his sister healthy for long. In listening to their conversations, I learned that, to ensure no one else could get in, the observation tower was sealed with 3 locks. The Lord, the swordsman, and the young man each held one of the keys. I was their secret, locked away in the tower for them to drain of blood away from wandering eyes. Time went on, and I grew progressively weaker. I lost the will to eat, the will to live. My only view from the tower was the clouds through a window high up on the wall. Occasionally, a pigeon would fly in, sometimes a butterfly, and I would glare in envy as it fluttered around, free to come and go as it pleased. Soon it was spring. Every spring, the church held a festival to pray for the coming year's harvest and for the people's well-being. I could hear the bustle from far below through the window as everyone rushed to prepare. I heard the flaxen-haired girl's voice, who had regained her health, drinking my blood. I had heard her brother's voice, who had betrayed me. I had heard the nun's voice, who played saint in my stead. I heard the barbaric swordsman's voice, who had chopped off my arm.
and I heard the Lord's voice, the root of all my suffering. I heard people praising the saintess, though I, the true saint, was locked in the tower. I heard people thanking the Lord for his generous donations and miracle medicine, though it had all come from me. Propped up on my suffering, they cheered and clinked glasses of my bloody wine. Those merry, peaceful, cheerful, spirited sinners' voices resounded in my tower. And at noon on the day of the festival, the church bell tolled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and with the 12th chime, I died. As the bell's last pealing faded into silence, the tower door swung open. Standing on the other side of it were 3 men. They must have wanted to drain a little more from me to use in the feast. But they had arrived at the worst possible moment. The flaxen-haired young man was the first to express his consternation.
Why? I never wanted her to die. Was she not eating?
The Lord gave my corpse a casual glance and said, stone-faced, "Seal the tower off. Understood? No one finds out about this."
How? How can you be so calm? Do you understand what you've done?
Huh. Pinning the blame on me? How nice it must be to distort reality with panic. The swordsman, who had been silently observing the Lord and the boy conversing, interjected, "You're just as guilty as any of us." Not only did they not mourn my death, they argued over whose fault it was. There was no regret, no remorse. The young man muttered absent-mindedly, I never wanted her to die." What did his intentions matter, though? It was his betrayal that had ultimately tethered me to this mansion. But the fact that they didn't grieve my death and instead squabbled amongst themselves like filthy rats, that was the final straw. How could I not despise them? I don't believe I actually had the power to perform miracles when I was alive. It was all faith, the illusion of belief. I was neither a saint nor a witch. The blood wine was only effective because people placed their faith in the other saintess. I was only ever human. But then, in that moment, an actual miracle occurred. My Father bestowed upon me his power. Or perhaps it was the devil who lent me his strength. I was looking down upon my own dead body, my own wretched self. There was nothing beautiful about the pile of bones I had become. I could almost smell the rotting flesh. That was once a saint? I laughed at the thought. It was absurd, ridiculous, and infuriating. They would pay. Those who had cast me into this hell, who had mocked me, who had done this to me, who had made a witch out of me. Hatred coursed through me, revulsion at everyone on these grounds still smiling. They would know just whose dead shoulders their little party was resting upon, and if they wanted so badly to call me a witch, then a witch I would be. I would kill them, every last one of them. Place a curse on their souls. And so I made my wish. Most people might consider it a curse, but to me, it was most certainly a wish. And my father, or maybe the devil, granted that wish. From the garden, there rose a scream. The flaxen-haired young man knew that voice better than anyone. He went deathly pale, darting down the spiral staircase until he reached a window. The young girl was on her knees, vomiting blood in the grass. The young man let out a yelp as he descended the remainder of the staircase. As soon as he reached the garden, he lifted the girl in his arms, but she had already perished. Realizing this, he cried to the heavens, "I got you, Tiny King," when the stream's over, saying the one thing he should have kept to himself.
The witch killed her. The blood of the witch killed my sister. That wine you're drinking is no medicine. It's the blood of the witch. You're all drinking witch blood.
Crushed by the loss of his only family, the young man picked up a silver fork and plunged it into his own throat. Ending his life. Naturally, there was an uproar. Goblets of wine crashed against the earth in rapid succession as the people holding them fell to the ground and vomited or convulsed. The nun was the first target of their outrage. What she had claimed to be medicine had turned out to be blood, an unclean substance, the blood of a witch, no less. A servant of the church, a servant of the Lord, had given her followers blood to drink, and at this, their indignation surged uncontrollably. The people surrounded her, tying her up, throwing her to the ground. As they prepared to inflict righteous justice upon her, the swordsman soared down the stairs, into the garden, plunging his blade into anyone standing near the nun. The cries of agony ringing through the church grounds were ear-splitting. It was no longer a place of God, but hell on earth. Hell built up by the hands of man. Hell painted red with the blood of their brothers. The people armed themselves with anything they could find and went after the man. As much of a beast as he may have been, he stood little chance against such numbers. It is the fate of a beast to be exterminated by those he terrorizes. And once he was gone, well, the nun had no one left to protect her. She, too, was consumed by the frenzy. All that remained was an inextinguishable inferno, hysteria and despair, madness and outrage, and no outlet for it. It was a revolt that made the slaves' uprising at the Lord's manor look like a game. Eventually, their rage found a new target, the Lord. It was only natural, for he was the true villain. He was the one who had given the money and the witch's blood to the church, and he was the one who had profited off it. And above all, people often resented those who stood above them, particularly in times of unrest. The city resounded with cries for the Lord's head, and he looked down upon it all from the safety of the observation tower. He could do nothing but watch as his domain burned. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. But before long, having seemingly have made his peace, he began descending the spiral staircase. He opened the door at the bottom, revealing himself to his people, but before the door had swung all the way open, before he had had a chance to say his final words, someone ran a blade through his chest. With that, raging furor mostly settled down, but it was hardly the end of the destruction. Mere days later, a plague befell the city. Dreadful black spots covered the flesh of the infected. They writhed in pain, screaming and vomiting blood. ghastly howls echoed through the streets as the whole city had been possessed. It became a cursed land. In their diseased haze, the people muttered again and again, "We have been cursed by the witch." In less than a week, the entire city was dead. My body left abandoned at the top of the observation tower. And as if to seal the curse away, in their final days the people shuttered all the windows, wrapping the house in darkness. It's possible. That was no miracle either. You can easily explain what happened to them, locked away for so long in that dirty tower. Maybe I caught some kind of disease, and then, when people drank my blood, well, they too were infected. Hardly anything out of the ordinary about that. The first to die, the girl, had already been ill. Her body merely chose the worst possible time to yield to her ailment. That was all that had happened. Indeed. It was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, an unbelievably unfortunate accident for the city and for those three men, and an indescribably fortunate accident for myself. But I wish to believe it was a miracle, that even if my blood didn't have healing properties, and even if I wasn't a saint, my wish, my curse, was what caused that uprising. That was my miracle. Granted to me by God or the devil, I choose to believe that, and that my miracle took on its true form thereafter. My curse had brought death upon the three men, but for whatever reason, my rancor was far from sated. They had died. So what? Death is but a transient agony. It's nothing compared to what I went through. So I made my next wish. I wished for their reconstruction. I wished for eternal suffering on their souls. I wished to trap them in a never-ending cycle of pain and hatred. This was my wish for the flaxen-haired young man. Oh, he treasured his dear sister, and he desired a quiet life, so I wished for him to have just that. And I wished for his dearly beloved sister to love him more than anything in the world. For his world to be destroyed by love gone too far. This was my wish for the beast-like man. He was conscious of his tendency for violence, and he yearned to be more human, so I had his inner beast toned up just a little. I saw to it that he would never be human, so he would never have the peace he so desired. And my wish for the Lord was more straightforward. Well, he seemed to have great affectation for wealth and authority, so I ensured those were the only things he could ever have. Who needs love or friendship when you could be drowning in power? Once he had lost everything, his solitude would be his only companion. Wishes can come true, as long as you always hold fast. Never stop wishing, never surrender. They can come true. Eternal suffering on all their souls, an endless cycle of reconstruction and unavoidable tragedy. Tell me, my dear, do you sympathize with me? Will you curse them with me? Will you take my hand and revile them with me? Feels like a question's about to happen. We'll do a hard save here. Michelle down an arm now? I don't know. Still apartment hunting? Best of luck, man. We're about to find out. This time, when my body crashes into the tower's stairs, I'm unable to make a noise. The obstruction is less mental, more physical. The excruciating pain. It's so intense I can't even eke out a scream. My vision is distorted, my mind thick with fog. I feel like I'll fall into a bottomless pit if I loosen my grip on my consciousness, even slightly. Through the haze, I see my own severed left arm. Reflected in a pool of blood, I see my face, large chunks of flesh peeled off. Look at you, trying to crawl up those stairs like a worm. How pathetic. It's like I'm looking at my old self. I can barely form a coherent thought. I can't lament her inhuman fate, can't mourn for her, or be shocked by the revelation about the 3 men and her history with them. Pain. It fills every corner of my mind, every nook and cranny of my body. You've figured it out by now, haven't you, my dear? You'll never make it to me. It's not possible. But it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak. No, there's simply no one who can bear this pain. You're allowed to give up now, to rest. There's nothing wrong with that. The pain, the crushing weight, it's miserable, isn't it? But all you have to do is turn back, and it'll all go away. The witch whispers her sweet temptations. You've put in a fine effort. There's no shame at all in throwing in the towel. Her voice soft, gentle, pleasant, saccharine. Concede defeat. And if I do, it'll all go away, the searing pain spreading from the stump of my left arm. The sensation of being perpetually drained of my blood. The miserable solitude of staring at a door that never opens. The laughter I can hear through the window. My miserable wailing and this maddening hatred, I can end it all. That's right. It will all be over. You have the power to make it stop. Make it all stop. Do it for her! Do it for her! No, I can't let that happen. No, I have to. I have to get her back. At my side. I'll do anything to take her back. Even if it means I end up 1,000 tiny scraps of meat. I will not give up on her for any reason. You won't, will you? Oh, such beautiful resolve. Willing to sacrifice yourself to save the girl, like a hero of legend, or maybe a fairy tale prince. No, I'm no hero, and I'm no prince. I'm a human, an ordinary man. I don't have any extraordinary potential. I'm not a courageous leader or a charismatic general. I'm just a regular man, in love with a regular woman who refuses to lose her. I don't need any other accomplishments, only that. That's all I need, because I'm just a regular man. My one act of resistance. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much you cut me up. Nothing changes what I have to do. I have to take her back and set her free of this mansion. Nothing else. And never will I back down on that. Arms or no, as long as I can move, I must push forward. I must make my way to the woman who waited for me for so long. Up, to the top of the tower. Forward, ever forward, ever onward. I prepare the backwards long jump. Dragging my bloody body, paying the pain no mind, I once more arrive at the top of the observation tower. I place my hand on the door, holding myself up with my lacerated right arm. Take a moment to catch my breath. Then lift my head, gaze into the void, and shout her name. Morgana! I pity you. I truly do. You are a saint, shackled with an unfathomable fate, and for that I am enraged. As I felt your pain, as I watched your life, I too felt a burning hatred for those 3 men. If you truly feel that way, then why can't you stay here, with me? We're all dead anyway. We've reached our ends. Do you honestly think there's anything more for us? There isn't. The end is the end. So what do you say? The 3 of us, me, you, and Giselle, torture the 3 of them and everyone they cared about. Make them suffer here for all eternity, in this house. And that way, you and Giselle can be together forever, too. That's not an option. Why not? Because hatred only brings you pain. Oh, that's brilliant. You spouting stupid platitudes at me. Oh, I can't believe my ears. Save your nonsense, moralizing about how hatred does you no good. I won't hear it. Oh, I'm doing just fine for myself, my dear. In fact, I've never been better. I feel wonderful. I'll probably last longer than you and never fade away. I'll never fade away. I'll never fade away. I know my fate. That's a Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, Kendrick Lamar reference. Did you think that would be enough to persuade me? Really? Thank you, Lurking Horror. You got that? I'm so happy you got that one. Sometimes I don't know, what my audience's music taste is. I didn't know if that would land. Ah, how disappointing. And here I thought you understood me. Morgana, why don't you say what you really think? Go right on ahead. Hate them as much as you want. But keep me and Giselle out of it. Why didn't you just say that? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. New connection between Lurking Horror and I unlocked. I do feel bad, truthfully. For all the time we spent together, never once did I ask about your life. I was so focused on myself. And in the end, I pushed you away. That you did. You wanted to be with Giselle, so you pushed me out. I wish I had asked you sooner. It wouldn't have changed anything, though. One puny man knowing what I went through would hardly be enough to erase the loathing I bear. It would have turned out the same regardless. There was nothing you could have done for me. There is nothing. Still, I would like to apologize. Had I known what you carried in your heart, perhaps I could have chosen my words better. Instead of rejecting you, I could have chosen some other response. I cannot remain in this house, nor can I allow her to stay either. So I would like to apologize for both my past actions and my present. Well, in that case, open the door, Michelle. I take another moment to catch my breath, and then I gather my strength into the hand of the door. Blood seeps from my fingertips, slowly trickling down the rough surface. It reminds me of my death. I'm coming for you. I push open the door, praying that it will be the last. That beyond it lies light for Giselle. And if possible, that it might cast a bit of light on Morgana's heart as well. What? However, why am I in my bedroom? What I find behind the door is the last thing I expect. Huh? As she appears from the shadows of my chambers, I can't conceal my surprise. Giselle? Is this another illusion, Morgana? No, it's not. I am the real me. Thank you for coming all the way here for me. She's thanking me. So why isn't she smiling? That was a very kind and courageous of you, Michelle. Well, I'm deeply moved you would have such compassion not only for her, but for someone like me. But do you know what else you are? You're a worm. What is it this time, Morgana? What do you say we pull back the curtain, my dear? What curtain? Well, there's one detail that hasn't yet come to light. This isn't your first return to the mansion, is it? Well, you've been back numerous times. Each time, not remembering her. Oh, and each time hurting her even more. What are you talking about? What am I talking about? Oh, you know good and well, my dear. Or do you honestly believe that all the other pieces were in their rightful places and that you alone were some exception? I never... Tell me. How was it? Living in so many different eras, not knowing who you were, and playing with all the different men. No, you're out of your mind. You make it sound like I was... Not like, my dear. You are the white-haired girl. Enough! How could anyone possibly confuse me with her? To tell you the truth, I couldn't see you as anyone else. Your white hair, your red eyes, porcelain skin, and your name. Tell me, what about you isn't the same? We are not the same person. I saw the letter. What? The one you had hidden. No. And you didn't think that was worth mentioning. No. Just Giselle, I didn't mean... You're exactly right, my dear Giselle. He deceived you. Kept a very important secret from you. Despite showing up before you multiple times, he cast you aside again and again. No, that wasn't me. It wasn't. It all makes sense now. Nothing you ever did was for me. Giselle, Go on, Giselle. Tell him exactly how you feel. Michelle. Don't. Please, don't. Don't say it. Not that, please. Please, I'm begging you. Stop. Please. Please don't, Giselle. You're not actually... Please. Don't say it. A man at all. Are you? You're disgusting. You're the only one it could have been, my dear. The only one who could have been the white-haired girl. The next moment, my whole world comes tumbling down. I could have borne anything. Losing my arm. Having my face torn off. Any amount of pain, I could have handled it. For you, I could have done it. But this... Hearing those words, coming from your mouth, being rejected by you, that I cannot. Those words, they bury me alive, and you are the one person I never wanted to hear them from. When I learned my father Antonin had passed, I wrote 2 letters, one to my brother and one to my mother. It was the first time I had found the courage to face my mother, to open up to her. I wanted to show her who I was, convince her I wasn't cursed, so I could be myself when I returned to the capital with Giselle. Dear Mother, there is something I wish to tell you, something that means a great deal to me. So I ask of you, please, hear me out. And I ask of you, please, accept it. Mother, I no longer bear any resentment for my present lot in life. Nevertheless, I would ask of you to concede one thing, that I was never cursed, that I was always your son, that I am Michelle, not Michelle. I have found someone whom I care for dearly, a woman, and I love her with all my heart. I would like to spend the rest of my life with her. I do not wish for much, simply to have a quiet life with her, to go through our days together, man and woman. That is the one thing I want. Mother, I know you're aware that my body is no longer female. I am a man. My heart is male. And I ask of you to please accept that. I have no grudge with you. In fact, I am incredibly grateful to you for bringing me into this world. With love, your dearest son. Franco! What a time to make an entrance. What's up, buddy? What is up? Yeah, we're we're in the meat. We're in the meat. Bear with me. Bear with me. We'll catch up in a minute. Shortly after sending that letter, I was killed. I'm dragged down, against my will, into the darkness. Beneath me spreads my own past. My door. The door I swore never to open. But despite all my efforts to resist, the door sucks me in. Into a world I never wanted to see again. A history I never wanted revealed. A past I never wanted anyone to see. Nonetheless, the door opens. The seventh door. 1086 to who knows? Let me take a minute. Franco. Loved that long form. You know what it reminded me of? Yeah, Franco, you first have to meet Jack. Jack has played every version of this game that exists and has caught up on the highlights of the playthrough. From my VODs. So Jack is here. Popped in today for the first time and actually let us know of something really cool. Did you know in the fourth door, Franco, when we're getting like the romanticized fake version of the Michelle and Giselle story, how we get those interstitials of like cutting meat and nasty like squelching goopy sounds? If you check the backlog in those moments, there's hidden secret text that kind of tips off that it's a fake construction of that world. They play with like the backlog element of the game. Yeah. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? Welcome in. Welcome in, Franco. I loved that. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the storytelling sections, the visual novel sections of Near Replicant, with the riddles and the all that kind of stuff, where it's like a lot more straight up text driven. There's no images really. There's nothing else to deal with. It's a pure imagination game. Fantasian, that iOS game, did the same thing as well, and so does Lost Odyssey, I believe. I think Lost Odyssey has long form, black screen, text interstitials that are like meant to just be like an imagination driver and fill in exposition and character stories and things. There's a lot about Lost Odyssey that I've heard is phenomenal, and I'd love to get to it at some point. But yeah, that's really like my point of comparison. When a VN goes all black screen, full thing of text, you know it's gonna go hard, right? Exactly, exactly. I think now is as good a time as ever. I was so wrapped up. I haven't used the bathroom yet, and I'm 2 cups of tea down, and I had Taco Bell right before the stream started. Not to give you an imaginative angle, but I'm gonna go run to the restroom really fast. Franco, it's great to see you. Especially, I know you said that you probably couldn't have made it tonight, but I'm glad you're here for some of it. These 7 to 11 streams are really nice. We still got another hour to go. When I get back, we're taking our first steps into the 7th door. Right. We'll check the backlog after I get back from break. When I come back, about another hour of this, I'm not gonna leave you with the choral monastic whatever that is. I'm gonna run to the restroom. I'm gonna get another cup of tea, actually. We'll go for it. It'll be a 3 tea night. Thank you everybody for being here. In the meantime, talk amongst yourself. I'll see you in a bit. This game's incredible. What more is there to say? Bye. Hi everybody. Would you believe it? I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. I peed. But my iron stomach stayed strong, living to eat Taco Bell another day. I'm drinking from the Metroid Dread mug. That's true. That is a video game about a woman talking to the police. That was her story. It's supposed to be very good. Those Sam Barlow games get pretty good reception. I'm excited to try it sometime. All hail the iron stomach. Yeah, I don't know. It's just right now, I guess. Let me, while I'm here, give Tiny King a roll credit really fast. Tiny King's really pulling for Red Dead Revolver. And this will give me time to say that the next full playthrough on the channel will be a sequel. So, whatever we beat next, coming up this week, we're going to beat one of these 2 games. And we might even beat both, depending on how it goes. Rainbow Six and Sweet Home both have less than half of their game remaining. It could be a 2 clear week. Now, if it is, one of the games we will be starting is Roller Coaster Tycoon. This was rolled months back, and we finally have a setup and everything to play Roller Coaster Tycoon, you know, the way I want to play it on the channel. It's going to be really good. It's going to be a really, really fun time. Really chill, cozy streams that I think will be a fun change of pace after the tension and stress of both Rainbow Six and Sweet Home. Aside from that, we have 24 games that we've played on this channel so far that have a sequel in one form or another. Those games are Pokemon Black version 2, Radical Dreamers, which is the visual novel interlude between Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. Actually, one sec. I just got a phone call from somebody that I don't expect to get phone calls from, and he might go, ah, shit, my bad. But in case it's something serious, give me just 1 second. God. Oh, what's going on, everybody? I'm back. Oh. No, it was I Do Drugs 95 calling me to ask what the movie Everybody Wants Some is called. Because it's a movie that he watched on Hulu a couple months ago, and like the Richard Linklater one. And he's like, man, dude, shit. It was like a 50-50 toss up. No, I don't keep in my contacts named that. He's been one of my best friends for over a decade. But he called, and I just like, unexpected phone call. Goaty, you did drugs? Tiny King, I can tell you in complete confidence, I have never done drugs in my life. I've never been drunk. I've never smoked weed. I've never done any pills or any sort of substance like that. Never. Never have. Never had really the inclination or drive to. Oh, I said right. You said right now? Right. Why not? Multitude of reasons. None of which I really want to get into, I suppose. But my contacts are just screen names. Right. Yeah. That's Minky Moo's contact is Minky Moo. Why not drink? History in the family and things like that. It's one of those things that's like a lot easier to never engage with. Like it's easier to never start than it is to quit if it became a problem. I guess that means if that makes sense, right? It's just kind of like why risk it if there's like history of abuse in the family, substance abuse in the family. Like I probably could start drinking and not have any issue and really enjoy myself. But on the off chance that I have that kind of personality that would kind of slip into, addictive tendencies, it's easier to just not start so that I never know what I'm missing. Right? Anyway, I digress. Right. Only so much you can gain and more you could lose. Exactly. He called and was like, shit, it was like a 50-50 toss up if you were streaming. So I just went for it. What's the name of that movie with the guys that play baseball and it's about nothing and it's on Hulu? And I was like, Everybody Wants Some. Is that all you need? And he goes, yeah. All right. See ya. So we love I Do Drugs 95 here. I got my tea. We're all set to go. It's a little after 10 now, so I have just under an hour of, The Sandlot. Right. I should text him that. I should say Tiny King says it's actually The Sandlot. Let me do that right now. 1 sec. I got you. Where is he? Tiny King says it's actually The Sandlot. All right. Door 7, everybody. We are deep. We're deep. We're deep in the house of Fata Morgana. The house in Smoke Morganja. The house in Smoka Morganja. And we're about to learn Michelle's story, which is exciting. I guess exciting in like an expository way, but really probably really, really sad in execution. Both literally and figuratively, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, Jack even just said, this door hurts right before it happened. Right. right. I was just scrolling up to see that, and you just said it there too. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to take a sip of this tea. I'm going to turn the music back on. Boop. Franco's going beast mode. This is as good a time as ever I would never get caught playing these games, but if it in on a beach setting, I'm down. That Tiny King, that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it so you don't have to. But Tiny King, I do want to tell you, we're playing Sweet Home. Sweet Home is the precursor, the historical forefather of Resident Evil. And you might be interested in seeing that. I mean, it's a very old game. It's 1989. So we're about halfway through it. You might want to check it out. Tiny King would enjoy the beach episode of Valkyria Chronicles? Probably. I'm choosing to believe you just typed Valkyria Chronicles just to connect with Tiny King that little bit more. Here we go. Here we go. Thanks everybody for being patient. There were two things out of the ordinary about that baby. The first, its parents embraced, and the second, they wholly rejected. Although, it was some time before the baby's second peculiarity emerged, and until it finally did, no one was any the wiser. Not even the child itself. Its mother surely enjoyed that brief period of happiness before her child finally realized the truth. Blind to the fact that the moment it had let out its first cry, everything came crashing down. To this day, she still doesn't know the child she gave birth to, that she set loose a curse upon the world, a curse that turned angels into demons, humans into witches. My God, look at that. She's beautiful, isn't she? Have you seen her laugh? Not yet, I haven't. At any rate, that color certainly is something else. God's gift to us. No, she's an angel sent from heaven. An angel? Ah, yes, I can see it now, Liddy. Her white hair and almost translucent skin, it's beautiful. My, she opened her eyes. Maybe she felt you nearby. Do you like your father more than me? Is that it, sweetheart? Gorgeous, aren't they? Such a deep, enchanting color, like two little jewels. Ah, that they are. Let me set. There we go. Oh, sorry. A magnificent shade of red. I've never seen anything like it. And this is our child. She's special. I can feel it. Oh, we have to take good care of her. She needs a name, one that's just as special as her. Have you already chosen, Antonin? Yeah, you were the one begging for a girl. You do it. Besides, I already had to rack my brain for the boys' names. Well, now it's your turn. Are you really going to let me? My, that's quite a lot of pressure. Name her after an angel, then. Oh, I like that. All right, then. We'll call her Michelle. After the archangel, Michael. You'll grow up to be as beautiful as any angel, my Michelle. I've always wanted a little girl. With her snowy white hair, skin so pale you could see the veins beneath it, and her ruby red eyes, she was a very peculiar-looking little girl, and her mother showered her with love. She truly believed her daughter was an angel sent from above, born as a human child. The blessed babe, born a girl, was given an angel's name. Michelle. Me. Checkmate. I see. That's what you did. Curses. I completely overlooked that. I thought you were advancing with your pawns, but that was all a diversion. You're too short-sighted, Didier. You need to look at the big picture. Sometimes it's the tactician and not the soldier holding the sword.
You got me. You're quite good at this, Michelle. What inspired you to take such an aggressive strategy?
It was not inspiration, it was derivation.
Derivation?
Chess is in many ways similar to real war tactics.
Ah, my military texts. You haven't read all of them, have you?
I have nothing but time.
Impressive. Even I haven't read all the books in my room. You plan to join the Order with that kind of knowledge?
You jest. You're the one who's going to be a knight, Didier.
That I am. War is the men's job, after all. I want you to be there to welcome me home.
Didier? Oh, Didier! I'm in a bit of a bind. Oh, hello there, Michelle. I didn't know you were home, George. Just got back, yep. Playing chess again, are you? Let's see. What do we have here?
Get away from the board.
Yikes, you got trounced, huh? And you call yourself her big brother.
As if you're any better.
Hey, that's not funny, George. I cannot approve of someone who can't keep up with the flow of battle becoming a knight. Given our family's rank, you would eventually be put in charge of other soldiers.
What? Are you worried about me?
No, I'm saying...
I've been blessed with such a caring sister. But fear not. I have a guardian angel, after all.
Where's the logic in that? Sorry to interrupt your, moment, but does nobody listen to me?
Now, don't pout. So, what seems to be the problem, George?
Ah, yes. Well, listen to this. The royal court is holding a swordsmanship show, and for some reason, I was selected to participate.
How unfortunate for you. I can already see you on the ground sobbing.
Hey, now, that's just mean. Besides, my hands weren't meant to hold a sword. Look at these dainty fingers. They're covered in calluses.
Yeah, dude, this is the song.
Dainty calluses? Tell me, why would they have an artist sword fight?
That's the whole point, I would think. No need to get so worked up. No one's expecting you to win.
Maybe not, but we do have a name to worry about, and you know what that means, don't you? I'm going to lose. That's a given. But I want to do it in style.
Oh, I feel bad for your sword.
Oh, don't be like that. Now come on, time's a-wastin'. To the courtyard we go.
Listen, just so you know, if I train you, I'm gonna train you right.
All I want to know is how to look good.
What is it, Michelle?
May I watch? Fine with me, but you know you can't go outside. I'll be watching from the hall. I can open one of the windows facing the courtyard.
Still, you need to be careful. You can't spend too much time in the sun.
I know.
The voice is on point, thanks.
I had 2 older brothers. The eldest, Didier, belonged to an order of the knights that served the church, and below him was Georges, who served as a court artist. He was, in all likelihood, who would inherit the family estate, as knights were not formally allowed to own property.
I'm just kind of taking a shot in the dark on Georges. We're just gonna roll with that shit, because it just feels right, and it feels a little bit more, you know, than just saying Georges.
Nevertheless, the Bollinger family name was upheld by Didier. And there was me, the youngest, the only daughter. Physically, I was not in particularly good health. Because of the color of my skin, I was hypersensitive to sunlight. I rarely left the estate. My world contained entirely within these walls. And perhaps out of some sense of pity or compassion, my two brothers spent a good deal of time with me. Didier played chess with me, and Georges taught me how to draw. And among other things, they taught me how to read and write. I gotta send one thing really fast. I'm sorry. Something just immediately came to my mind. Okay, sorry. For a girl, I was incredibly fortunate. The one thing I wasn't allowed to do, though, was hold a sword. While hardly anything unusual, it bothered me deeply. And it had for as long as I could remember. If I had been told I couldn't do it because I lacked the strength, I probably would have accepted it. But the reason given was not that I was weak, but that I was a girl. And with each passing year, that smoldering frustration in the back of my heart grew larger.
Come on, put your back into it.
Like I said, all I want is to put on a good show.
Oh, you'll put on quite a show, unless you learn how to swing that sword properly.
Oh, give me a break! Out in the garden, my two brothers traded swings bare-chested. All I could do, though, was observe from afar. And every time I found myself forced to watch, I felt a sharp pain, like a needle, piercing my chest. A needle that seemed to be growing ever thicker. My mother and my brothers loved me dearly, but that didn't change the fact that the outside world lay beyond my reach. I was trapped in the estate by my own body. At first, I thought that was the root of my pain, but that answer seemed to contradict something inside me, something I couldn't explain, something I couldn't ignore, even as a child. So I searched within myself, trying to find an explanation for the constantly swelling sensation of wrongness inside me. Day after day, I gazed into the cavern of my own heart. My, now what are the two of them doing out there? Georges was asked to do a swordsmanship show at the royal court, so Didier is helping him. Swordsmanship? Oh, I just can't stand those shows. Blades are so dangerous, I can't watch people swinging them at each other. Why don't you come back to your room with me, Michelle? I would love to teach you how to sew. But Mom, I want to watch them practice. Michelle. First of all, you need to watch how you speak, young lady. You do not call me Mom, you call me Mother. This is what happens when you spend so much time around boys. As your mother, I don't approve of you playing chess or making art. A woman has no need for such skills. They will only make you look insolent. But I want you to grow up to be a respectable woman. That is my job and my dream as your mother. Now come. I would rather you looked at some fine embroidery with me than a couple of sweaty men. Yes, Mother. You are my little girl, after all. Spending time with my mother was agonizing. Was it because her world was so isolated? No, that wasn't it. Her gentle voice, the sweet scent of her perfume, the way she constantly told me how much she loved me, and her diatribes about how wonderful it was to be a girl. Everything she did put so much pressure on me. But above all, she loved to say, "You are my little girl, after all." And there was nothing strange about that at all. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw the daughter of a noble. That was who I was. So the only thing wrong was how I felt. But every time I was faced with the reality of who I was, my heart wavered. I had no interest in learning to embroider. I didn't understand why that was necessary. I knew what purpose it served. Everything she taught me I would need when I was wed off to some noble boy. and it was my responsibility to learn those things. It didn't feel right, though. I couldn't even accept the fact that one day I would be married. It was but an ominous shadow lurking in my future. I would have preferred ravaging the books in Didier's room than having a conversation with my mother. Tales of heroes of old and dauntless soldiers, military texts written by tacticians in the midst of war. Thinking about them sent my heart aflutter and made me think about my brother. He was training to be a knight. I envisioned armor flecked with rust, a long sword glimmering with the blood of savages. Soon, I found myself in my fantasies imagining how the sword would feel in my hands. The sensation of the hilt beneath my fingers, swinging it gallantly like my brother. How heavy was it? How much muscle would I need to carry it? Well, how much impact would I feel in my hands when I struck something? How restricted would my vision be wearing a helmet? How much did it weigh? How hot was it inside? I had no way of answering any of those questions. Kill me now! I have some cloth if you'd like to wipe yourself off. Oh, yeah, thanks. Oh, I'm so dead. Well, you were at it for a long time. Well, I've never known Dee to half-ass something once he gets started. Which I guess is what makes him knight material, but... Are you opposed to him becoming a knight? Well, I'd kinda assumed he'd inherit the estate and handle taking care of everything. So it's like, why's he gotta go and be some priest's whipping boy? Don't tell him I said that, though. He wants to fight for the greater good. Oh, I don't know. Despite the name, he wouldn't be doing much fighting himself. Anywho, someone as passionate as him might be able to make some changes for the better. Changes? He knows what condition the Order is in. That's why he's joining. Figure he wants to whip him into shape, melt him down and reforge him, that whole thing. Huh. So he might be able to change things. What are you muttering about, Michelle? Hey! Whoa, hold it! The pain I felt in my chest when I smelled the sweat emanating from Georges' body, when I looked at his slender but distinctly male build, I was convinced it was admiration. Did I want to become a knight, too? Maybe the discomfort I felt was because I wanted to be like him. Would it all go away if he were able to change the rules and I could join the Order as well? Well, I was positive it would. Didier? Michelle? Hold on. Hey, listen, you can't come barging into my room unannounced. I'm trying to change here. We need to talk. I said stop. Listen, you're a girl. You can't just walk in on a man as he's changing. I see no reason for you to be so self-conscious. Listen to me, Michelle. Georges tells me you're planning to overhaul the Order. He told you that? No, I hardly have such grand aspirations. Listen, don't be coy. I believe you have what it takes to do it, Didier. What's gotten into you? You're unusually fiery today. I want to ask you a favor. When you have enough influence in the Order, I would like you to make me a knight too. You what? I'm tired of the way Mother treats me, always saying I can't do this or that's because I'm a girl. I want to learn how to swing a sword. I don't want to do embroidery. I don't care about jewelry or fancy clothing. But, Michelle, what's gotten into you? I'm so much more interested in the world you live in, Didier. So please. Well, I'll be. I suppose we must have let ourselves spend too much time with you. Not you too, that's exactly what Mother said. First of all, Michelle, you don't have the strength to hold a sword. Then I'll train until I do. And if that doesn't work, I still have my mind. Good and well I could... People are not chess pieces, Michelle. But Didier... But above all, you're missing the most important point. I will not, for any reason, become the kind of man who makes a woman
take up a sword.
Didier.
Listen, this may seem normal to you growing up with two brothers, but I want you to listen to me, Michelle. Men and women walk different paths. Men wield swords and fight against dangerous enemies, and they do so to protect the weak, women, and children. I'm here to protect you and your mother.
You're no different than her. You don't treat me any differently than her.
Honestly, what's gotten into you, Michelle? Why wouldn't I treat you like a daughter of the Bollinger estate? Your brother and I, we never meant to make you think...
Forget it.
What?
I'm sorry, I knew what I was asking was foolish.
Oh?
But I thought you would understand how I feel. Even just a little bit. What was I expecting him to understand, even I didn't understand the things I felt? I wanted to know what had gotten into me far more than he did. What I had done was no better than throw a temper tantrum. Was I that desperate to become a knight? No. I had just thought that the key to the chains in my heart lay down that road. But ultimately there was nothing. Assuming Didier had agreed, and assuming I did become a knight, it wouldn't do anything for the core problem. As I dashed from my brother's room, I snuck a peek at him. His face was filled with an intense perplexity. And how could I blame him? I had tried to push a dozen different ideals onto him at once, filled myself with the vain hope that he would somehow be able to make sense of me when I couldn't even make sense of myself. And now, bubbling with unwarranted anger at being let down, I fled to my own chambers. I can only imagine how frustrating that must have been for him. It was the spring of my 14th year. Heavy clouds filled the sky, blocking out the sun and giving the impression of late evening all throughout the day. I, for one, preferred it when the sun wasn't out. Not that sunlight would kill me, but if it was bright enough, the whole world was so white I could hardly see a thing, which meant I could only go outside on days when the weather made most everyone else gloomy. As I was meandering through the courtyard, I spotted someone I had never seen before. A warm breeze blew past, sending up a swirl of flower petals. The girl's dress hung lightly over her frame, tracing her gentle curves. "Who are you?" I asked bluntly, and the girl twirled around, smiling. "My apologies. You just have such a beautiful courtyard here, I let myself in for a little walk." Long, chestnut hair flowed over round, feminine shoulders. It swayed slightly in the wind. The cloud of melancholy dissipated in the light of her smile. "You must be Michelle. Oh, you're just as pretty as I'd heard. And you are?" "My name is Amy. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." Finally meet me? What was she talking about? As I stood there baffled by this strange woman, she stepped toward me, kissing me softly on the cheek. "Oh, I'm thrilled to make your acquaintance, Michelle." Her voice was like someone pouring honey into my ear, electrifyingly sweet. "I'm Georges' fiancée." And it also stuck another needle into my chest. She was a noble girl by the name of Amy Joubert. Though only 15, she was the very image of refined, polished to a shine. No one had told me my brother was to be married. It came out of nowhere. And it seemed I was the only one who didn't know. That evening, when the family gathered around the table for supper, Amy was there too. And they prepared an extravagant feast for the occasion, My father, Antonin, looked so proud of his 2 boys. Didier, soon to receive his assignment, and Georges, soon to be wed. The banquet proceeded smoothly. Not a doubt in the air that we were a happy family. But my mind was elsewhere. I found myself unconsciously chasing Amy with my eyes, watching the way those slender fingers gripped her spoon, her full lips parting to allow a piece of fruit in, her deep red tongue visible for but the briefest of moments, the way all the muscles in her face seemed to relax in bliss as sweet juices seeped into her mouth, the way she spoke so soft and gentle, letting each sound hang in the air just briefly before intoning the next. She was distinctly feminine, in a different way than my mother. Apparently, Amy was going to be living at the Bollinger estate for some time. Mother was pleased to have another girl around. Or, more specifically, she was relieved to have found someone other than my brothers for me to spend time with. I had assumed I would hate being around another girl. Surely she wouldn't be able to play chess after all. But for some reason, I felt much less suffocated around her than my mother. Seriously. Horny jail. One night, Amy's family and an array of nobles from both houses' social circles assembled at the estate for a party. A din the likes of which I had never heard in my life filled the great hall. Everywhere I looked, there were people. Servants scrambled every which way, silverware clanged against dishes in an almost constant hum, voices from all directions. I felt moderately ill. Hey, Dee, I feel like we're critically short on waiters. This don't look good for us.
And who was it who went about inviting everyone he came across again? Who are these people?
Oh, they're artistes like me. I met them at the court. Let's see. We have some painters, composers, sculptors, troubadours, poets, writers, you name it.
None of them have any connection to the Jouberts or the Bollingers.
Sure they do. They're my friends. And you know, this is me and Amy's party.
Listen, you can play with your friends elsewhere. I hope you realize we have a reputation to uphold.
Off in one corner, several men, presumably Georges' friends, gathered in a circle. They stood out from the other aristocrats, both in appearance and the air they gave off, the clothes they wore, the embroidery hidden beneath their jacket cuffs, their manner of speech, the way they held themselves. They were simply put a far cry from the hard-headed Didier's ideal party guest. Even watching them from afar, it was clear my 2 brothers ran in very different crowds. The only reason headstrong Didier and free-spirited Georges were able to get along at all was because they were brothers. If they had been strangers, I doubt their paths would cross much, and if they did, those intersections would be quite rocky. Hey, come here, guys! Georges' shouting voice pulled my preoccupied mind back to the surface. He summoned his friends, then led them to where I stood. Hey, what are you doing hiding in the corner, Michelle? I didn't even notice you. Allow me to introduce you to a few of my friends. Oh, no, Georges put his hand on my shoulders, peeling me off the wall and standing me in front of his male friends. Socialization was the last thing on my mind. I searched for Didier, hoping he would come to my rescue, but he was off trading pleasantries, facing away from me. Well, this is my baby sister, Michelle. Be nice.
Georges, I don't... Graces, your skin's even more pale than I imagined. It's like something out of a fairy tale. And why have you never brought her with you to the court? She'd be a sure hit. And how old are you now? 12, mayhap?
Now, don't treat the lady like a child. I'll have you know she's 14.
All the more reason she should be out there making friends. The whole court'd flip if they knew you'd had such a gorgeous sister, Georges.
Oh, don't be such a brute, my man. Our little angel has to be kept inside for personal reasons.
Uh-oh. Sounds like I haven't been showing the lady her due respect. I've yet to even properly introduce myself. How rude indeed. Their laughs grated on my nerves. So did the way Georges spoke, as though I was his property. They looked like they were appraising me, which made me sick to my stomach. I'd been paying attention long enough to notice the man who had asked if I was 12, and the rest of them too, examining me from head to toe in search of curves. I was indeed underdeveloped for 14, but what did that matter? I didn't want a body shaped like Amy's or my mother's. Now then, milady, a proper greeting. The man got down on one knee before me. For a split second, I didn't comprehend what he was doing. Oh, go on, Michelle. He's waiting. He whispered in my ear. That was when it all came back to me. The traditional greeting performed between a man and a woman. Come on, Michelle, don't tell me you forgot what to do. Oh, I knew. I knew the process. I had that knowledge. Mother had taught me the rules, shown me the procedure. I was to present my hand to the man, for him to kiss. All I had to do was hold out my hand, but I was frozen. My body fought tooth and nail against the simple act. The thought of that man putting his lips on my skin sent a chill through me. Why? Why was this a traditional greeting? Why did I have to go through this? Michelle! But at the sound of George's frantic voice, my arm creaked up from my side. Then I remembered that despite being his friends, they were still nobility. As wanton as his social interactions may have been, he still had a reputation to maintain, and I understood that. I also understood that, as their sister, it was my responsibility not to do anything that might tarnish either of my brothers' names. Also, by tradition, the man wasn't supposed to actually kiss the woman's hand. The proper way to do it required he simply mimic the act, rather than make any real contact. That much I could handle. The man kneeling before me gave an uncomfortable chuckle at my reluctance, shrugged, and reverently took my hand in his. And then, he pressed his lips firmly against my skin. There was a vaguely warm sensation on the back of my hand for the briefest moment. What are you... Reflexively, I smacked the man's hand away. Georges' eyes went wide in horror, and the man gave another playful shrug. I was merely offering you a greeting, milady. Or is that a new experience to you? Your innocence is truly precious. I was half a second away from throwing a barrage of insults, but I bit my tongue, stomped off instead. Michelle, hey, come back, Michelle! I had spent all that time convincing myself I couldn't humiliate my brothers, but now I wouldn't hear a word of it. I had drawn a fair bit of attention, and other people tried to stop me too, but I brushed them all off, marching my way out of the great hall. I feel so dirty. You call that a greeting? No, that was no greeting, that was... I'll be taking that? I say, practically swiping a glass of water off a passing waiter's tray. With it, I washed my hand by the window facing the courtyard. But no matter how much water I poured over it, I couldn't erase the sickening sensation of his mouth on my hand. So I rubbed it with my sleeve until my skin was bright red. I wanted to feel something else, anything else, even pain. Think before you act, Georges. What were you doing inviting people like that into our home? I was angry, and I had every right to be. He had not performed the proper greeting. Even in jest, he had no business actually putting his lips on my hand. It was not acceptable behavior for an aristocrat. He was a guest, and he should have been ashamed. Was I angry that he had been disrespectful? No, that wasn't the reason. That wasn't very nice of you, running off like that. At the sound of his voice, I couldn't turn back. I felt a sickening warmth almost directly against my back. The man from the great hall grabbed me by the wrists, spun me around and pressed me against the wall. The bitter scent of wine wafted from above. "What the hell are you doing?" I tried a second time to get away from him, and that was when reality sunk in. I couldn't do it. All the strength I could muster wasn't enough to make the man's hand budge. My arms were locked in place. Oh, I didn't think he was especially strong either. He was hardly built like Didier. And still, I couldn't move an inch. "You've got a tongue like a boy, milady. But I know some people fond of that these days. Can't say I mind myself." "Let go!" Had I always been this feeble? Were my arms truly so worthless I couldn't escape this brute's grip? Why did I have to get stuck with this body? Now, just so we're clear, I'm not gonna hurt you. Listen, I'm no monster, I promise you that. Then why are you holding me against a wall? Because I want a chance to try and woo you. Listen, I apologize if I made you uncomfortable back there, but the second I laid eyes on you, I knew you were a keeper. Then let go of me. But if I do that, you'll run away. And it's my personal rule to never let go of anything I like. Your brother says you can't go outside, so if I set you loose now, I might never get the chance to catch you again. I wanted to vomit. Apparently taking my silence for approval, the man perked up and kept going. Listen, if you're not accustomed to being around men, then why not use this as an opportunity to get familiar? Not a half bad idea if I do say so myself. And I think we'd get along quite well. Hey, besides, I'm a minstrel. Spend some time with me and I'll write you all the songs you could possibly want. Get away from me. You really do have the most striking eyes. Makes me want to keep them all for myself. With a muse like that, I could write the most incredible songs you've ever heard. I said get back, you creep! Huh? That's odd. That one's never failed me. The man brought his face just inches from mine and peered into my eyes. I could feel his hot, wine-stenched breath against my cheeks. It gave me the chills. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me. Panic and confusion had my heart racing. Go try your luck with someone else. I'm not interested. You will be soon enough, darling. You've simply never known a man's touch. He drew closer. He was already practically on top of me, but still, he closed in, closer and closer. The world faded out. I couldn't see anything. I could feel his rising body heat so near it made me nauseous. My eyes flung open, but there was nothing there. I could only feel. I couldn't move. My body wouldn't budge. In my mind, I kicked the man away, pulled my fist back, and slammed it into his jaw again and again and again until his face was unrecognizable. Again and again and again and again I beat him, but reality would have none of that. Michelle! Hey, what do you think you're doing? 3 seconds? 10 seconds? Longer? I had no idea how much time I had lost. But the next thing I knew, Georges had the man by the collar. I fell back against the wall, staring absent-mindedly as the two struggled. They traded blows and traded insults. Before long, they had drawn a crowd. And while they went at it, I distractedly drifted away. I only had one place to go. I didn't even bother to light a candle. I just stared into the darkness. My heart beat maddeningly loud in my otherwise silent chambers. What had happened? What had he done to me? Why couldn't I do anything? The last thing I wanted to do was cry. Tears would only serve to worsen my humiliation, only magnify how wretched I was, only make me more effete. I bit down on my lip, hard. I had no need for that trash on my body. I dug my nails into my arms. I had no need for that trash on my body. All of this, every last bit of it. That was why I was the way I was. I didn't know how to put it into words. I didn't know how to express this boundless frustration within me. But after enough wordless groaning, a single word slipped from my lips. and it felt incredibly right. God damn it. I knew good and well a girl should not be using such words. Even Didier and Georges would have gotten an earful from mother or father if they were caught saying that. Regardless, God damn it! It was the most fitting word I could come up with to represent even the smallest bit of my anger and loathing. I knew all I was doing was shifting the blame, that all it would accomplish was making me look pitiful, but I would take that over crying like a girl any day. I let out a sigh that was halfway close to a scream, then started clawing wildly at my hair. I wanted to yank out every last damn strand of it. I didn't want it. I didn't want any of it. Any of this body, but in that case, what did I want from my body? Michelle? May I come in, Michelle? It was Georges' voice, slightly muffled through the door. The man who had invited those people into this house. I would be lying if I said I didn't hold that against him. Michelle. But at the same time, he had also come to my rescue. Besides, I hated myself the most. I despised myself for being so helpless. Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's not locked. After a few moments of silence, George stepped into my room. Your hair's a mess, Michelle. And my God, you're bleeding. That was when I first noticed the stinging sensation in my lower lip. A metallic taste spread through my mouth. I'd been biting it much harder than I had ever realized, and there was a lot more blood than I had expected. A trail of it running down my chin, seconds from spilling onto my clothes when Georges wiped it away. Oh, I'm really sorry, Michelle. He can be a real ass when he drinks. And he's a bit of a womanizer at that. Oh, I never expected he'd try to go after you, though. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. But, you know, there's a chance he may have, genuinely taken a liking to you. Oh, that just makes it worse. Sorry. You're right. You want to be with a man you like, and I understand. He ran his hands through my hair as if trying to calm me down, at the same time cleaning up the mess I had made of it. It made me feel like I was some kind of plaything, a joke of a doll. I don't. Huh? I don't want to be with anyone. I would never, ever be comfortable with a man putting his hands on me like that, however. Oh, I'm sure you'll find someone eventually, Michelle. Someone that feels right for you. I feel kind of awful for introducing you to him, but there are plenty of men in the world. You might not be interested now, but that'll change soon. It's part of growing up. You'd be best off forgetting today ever happened. I was dead certain, but apparently that wasn't enough to convince him. The very idea that I might one day meet a man who I wanted to touch made my skin crawl. Why? Why did I feel like this? Was I just not interested in men? No, if that were the case, I wouldn't admire my brother's bodies. I didn't have an aversion to men. In fact, I enjoyed spending time with my brothers far more than indulging with my mother and her woman's world. What I couldn't stand was the particular look men would sometimes give me. But why? Why did I not like that? I had no answer. My thoughts were only going in circles. Are you okay, Michelle? He peered down at me, his face twisted in concern. But I couldn't answer him. How was I supposed to articulate this? My anger, my frustration, my irritation and fear. I had no confidence he would understand. Georges, how's Michelle? Amy's voice came from the doorway. Inexplicably, I felt like someone had stuck their hand in my chest and was now squeezing my heart. Like I had just been caught in a compromising situation by the last person I wanted to see me. Yeah, she's doing good, aren't you? Yes, I'm fine. Glad to hear it. I was clearly lying, not even looking him in the eyes when I'd said that, but that seemed to have gone over George's head. Amy, on the other hand, oh, you don't look fine at all, she said. a hint of pain in her voice, and then she entered the room.
George, Father was asking for you. He says it's time to bring the gathering to a close. You should get going. I'll stay here with her.
Oh, is he? All right then. Sounds good. Once the sound of George's footsteps had faded into nothing, Amy took a seat beside me, and without warning, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. It's much better to talk to another girl at times like this. My heart leapt into my throat, but beyond the shock, I also find myself welcoming the warmth. It was pleasant, unlike the man's.
That must have been terrifying. But don't worry, you're safe now.
It wasn't really, no.
Oh, no need to pretend, sweetie. If a man had pinned me against the wall, I'd be scared too.
I mean it, I wasn't scared, I'm just disappointed in myself.
All right, I believe you. You're a strong girl, Michelle. There aren't many who wouldn't have been scared. I'll be sure to give George a stern talking to about his choice in friends. Well, something I learned today is that he's somewhat of a pushover.
You're a lot more tenacious than I thought.
Well, as a woman in this world, you have to be. And if you're not, well, you'll figure it out soon enough, Michelle. Of course, even as strong as you are, I'm sure it'll still be difficult to forget what happened to you today.
George had told me to forget it as soon as possible, and Amy that I wouldn't be able to. Was it the difference in their individual perspectives? Or was it the difference between the way men and women thought? That I wasn't sure. As my head rested against her breast, a bit of frustration slipped out.
I couldn't move my arms at all. He didn't even seem all that strong. I couldn't believe that I was really so weak. Oh, that's just the way of the world, Michelle. Men are physically stronger than women, so you'll almost never overpower one. You're not any weaker than a normal girl. Don't blame yourself.
Though it wasn't the consolation I had hoped for, her words still filled me with warmth. I had exploited my own weakness to hear more of that soothing voice, and I alone knew how foolish I was in doing so. Amy frequently visited my chambers. I didn't know if it was at Mother's request or of her own volition, but I prayed it was the latter. She was a very touchy-feely person, and she seemed to have a particular fondness for playing with my hair. Whenever her voice danced its way into my ears, it would wreak havoc inside me. Being enveloped in her scent, day after day, stoked the fire growing within me. I did my best to remain as straight-faced as possible, because the last thing I wanted was her catching on. I understood that the things I was feeling were untoward, to say the least.
Your hair is so utterly enchanting. I've never seen hair so white before. Oh, I think having color is much prettier. Oh, well, Georges says white is the most difficult color to make with paint, so there's no greater challenge than capturing the beauty of true white. Living with such a splendid example of the color must have given him a very high standard of quality.
It's getting so good, Draconics. That's why I looked at the time and I was like, we'll go a little past 11. We'll go a little further.
Say, Michelle, maybe you could tell me about yourself today. I would love to get to know you better. Tell you about myself. Yeah, well, we could become better friends if we had some mutual interests. Well, I enjoy playing chess, and I consider myself quite good. Oh my, chess? I've never played. You're such a bright girl, Michelle. Would you like to try? I could teach you. Oh, I appreciate the offer, but I think I'll pass. I doubt I'd be any good. Oh, okay. What else is there? Say,
Your favorite kind of flower or fragrance, color of gemstone maybe. Are there any embroidery patterns you're particularly skilled at? Oh, I don't have any favorites, no. And I'm not especially good with a needle either. No. Do you have shaky hands then? I wouldn't say that, no. I'm fairly good with a knife, I think. A knife? Oh, like a kitchen knife. No, a sculpting knife. Sculpting. Is that really so strange? Well, it is a bit unusual, I'd say. But George does it all the time. His room is practically made of wood chips and charcoal and paint. Well, George is an artist. And a man. There's nothing unusual about him doing some sculpting. Or why is it okay for him but not me? Does being a girl really make that much of a difference? Well, why don't we practice embroidery together, Michelle? I get the feeling you've spent too much time with your brothers. But now you have me, and I'm sure it won't be long before you appreciate how much fun cooking and needlework can be. She sounds just like Mother. She gives the same reason, too, because I'm a girl. But that's not an explanation. It's a vague generalization. Well, that said, if I agree, I can spend more time with her. Okay. Wonderful. We'll come up with beautiful designs together, and when you've made something you're proud of, you can give it to a boy who catches your eye. Or if you prefer, you could give it to your father or brother. I would like George to have what I make, though. Oh, I've been wondering. Did you and George meet at the royal court? Oh, heavens, no! I've never been to the court. One day my father told me I was getting married, and the next day is when we first met. It happened that quickly? What? Are you worried about me, Michelle? Don't worry. I'm not displeased with the arrangement. In fact, I'm quite happy with it. Aristocratic marriages are almost always sudden. And as a woman, you get used to being a piece in their games. But George, he's different. He's a gentleman. A gentleman. Him? You sound surprised. Well, I believe hedonist suits him better. Oh, I quite disagree. I have complete faith he'll do good by me. I couldn't fathom where she'd found such confidence in him, especially a man she'd only just met. How could she trust him at all? She was nothing but a pawn, and she knew it. So maybe she was simply putting on an act? I had trouble believing her smile was anything but genuine, though. One day you'll meet the right man for you, Michelle, and he won't be a drunk like the guy from earlier. He'll be a kind, hard-working, respectable man. I would rather not find anyone. I suppose this is all too soon for you, huh? Say, how old are you, Michelle? 14. Oh, wow. I assumed you were younger. Do I really look that young? No hard feelings. You're just like a tiny little doll, so small and slender, and look, not one bit of meat up here at all. Hey. She playfully grabbed me from behind and started prodding at my chest. As her delicate fingers slid across my skin, I found myself gripped by very indecent urges. Every heavy thump of my heart felt sinful. She couldn't know. I couldn't let her. Everything I had been fighting to keep down came hurtling to the surface. I love that video, Earth Nuggets. I love that. You're so cold, you know that? She was touching me like it was nothing, caressing my hair. Was she this intimate with Georges? Or was it because I was a younger girl that she was so keen on putting her hands all over me? Before I understood what I was feeling, my body acted. It was a pure, unfiltered impulse. In my attempt to escape from her grip, I twisted around only to find my face inches from Amy's. Slowly gravitating closer, I pressed my lips against the corner of her mouth. Amy sat there, flabbergasted. I was equally aghast. I'm sorry. As I frantically put some distance between us, I'm sure my face was red as an apple, though I didn't know it at the time. Well, that was certainly unexpected. I'm sorry, did I make you uncomfortable touching you so much? Amy was smiling, though it looked forced. No, not at all. Then I must have startled you somehow. I'm sorry. If I had let you go sooner, we could have avoided this accident. What do you mean, accident? A kiss on the lips is... It wasn't an accident. It wasn't, Amy. Well, I seem to have confused you somewhat, Michelle. What? I know I can be very touchy-feely with you, and you took that to mean you should do the same. No. Oh, you can't do that again, all right? If you want to kiss your friends, well, you do that on the cheek. Save the lips for the man you love. I should get going then. George starts getting cranky if I don't give him enough attention. Hold on, Amy. So long, Michelle. She wouldn't hear me out. Once Amy fled my chambers, that was when I finally comprehended my emotions. That she had stolen my heart. But Amy was George's fiancée. No, that wasn't the problem. My body, was not meant for her love. The writers really fucking nailed so many trans experiences in a row. Holy shit. Nice. Obviously, I'm glad to hear that it's presented in a manner that's like tasteful and respectful and from a place of understanding. Because to my understanding, the writer is just a guy. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know their personal life. But yeah, a real delicate touch for sure. I'm gonna keep going a little bit more. I awoke in the middle of the night to a pain in my joints. Not enough exercise, I guess. I tried bending and stretching my arms and legs, but it did nothing. So after pondering on it for a bit, I decided to go for a late night walk to distract myself. As I approached the corridor adjacent to the courtyard, I heard a woman's voice. I'm still concerned about staying here. Amy's voice. Doing my best to remain perfectly quiet, I pressed myself up against the wall by the window and listened in on their conversation. I knew it was improper to eavesdrop, but the sound of her voice had me frozen in place. It's Michelle. I'm afraid I've confused her. A tiny jolt ran down my spine, my muscles all tensing up at once. The sound of my name rising to her lips, but not in the way I would have liked. She kissed me. Well, almost, but how could I have guessed she thought of me that way? Mother told me she didn't have any female friends and asked me to be the one for her, which is why... So she had only been coming to see me because Mother had asked her to. I'd been afraid of that. Afraid that she wasn't there to be with me. That she had no fondness for me. That my yearning for her was one-sided. Oh, she kind of scares me, the way she looks at me, always watching every little move I make. I'm sensitive to that sort of thing, and I can tell what's going through Michelle's mind. I managed to deflect it this time, but I should have never gotten friendly with her. She had seen through me from day one. Understood what I was feeling before even I had. It's disgusting. Homosexuality. Homosexuality. Did I hear her right? Something inside me crumbled, and with it came an intense sense of wrongness. There it was again, that overpowering discomfort, that fear coursing through my veins, that repulsion, that irritation, that apprehension. What on earth was I? Did I view Amy as a member of the same sex? Were the things I felt homosexual? I heard Amy sigh from beyond the window, then the man beside her, who she was confiding all this in, replied, "She's still just a child." That voice, and one with underdeveloped social skills besides, understand that she's going to do and say some inappropriate things. It's not uncommon for a child to mistake admiration for love, and I didn't know this until recently, but when she gets something into her head, she has a tendency to run with it without thinking. It was not the man's I had assumed it was. The other day, she asked me to let her be a knight. I can't imagine how she thought that would end any other way. Why? It's not very often there are women other than Mother at the estate, and I imagine she simply got nervous being around you and something got mixed up in her head. Why was Didier out there with her? Oh, I hope that's all it was. Amy, hadn't you told me you thought Georges was a gentleman? So what were you doing getting so friendly with Didier? And Didier, weren't you my ally? Or was that all an act like her? You were going to be a knight. So why were you out here with your brother's fiancé? I'm glad to have you here, so I hope you can figure something out to make it work. I'll do what I can, and I'm kind of reluctant to say this to you, but something has to change. As it is, well, she kind of grosses me out. She grosses me out. So what? I was some kind of sick, disgusting creature? All I had done was show feelings for her. I couldn't be Georges or Didier. The needles piercing within me expanded, both in size and in number. Soon I was being skewered by a dozen of them, and the heated sighs rising from the courtyard only served to make the pain worse. All I could do was cover my ears and run. Why? What were you doing out there, Didier? How am I gross, Amy? It's not real. It's all a bunch of lies. This entire house is nothing but a fraud. None of it was ever real. The family gatherings, Amy's smiles, Didier's kindness, Georges. What about Georges? Did he agree to the marriage knowing about them? What the hell are they thinking? You want to know who's really disgusting? God damn it! I will not cry. I will not cry. I can't let myself. Girls cry. Tears are for girls, not for me. I bit down hard on my lip, wrapped myself in my sheets, and pressed my hands hard over my ears. Squeezed my eyes shut as tight as I could possibly manage and tried to get away from the things I had seen. The images of them embracing in the night threatened to float back to the surface, but I shook my head, casting them off. Praying I wouldn't have any nightmares, I drifted off to sleep. And we'll call it here. Going into the next day, awaking with a terrible fever. Yeah, the shit rocks. Yeah. Really, really good. Really good. I mean, obviously, tragic and very, very sad, but so captivating. I'm totally enjoying it, man. I'm totally enjoying it. Let me wind down here. Next week, remember, we're going to be doing these at 7 o'clock in an effort to gain as much ground as we can. We still have quite a ways to go from my understanding. It's funny, every time you think we're like getting to the edge, a hard left turn happens, and it's like, you forgot we have to flesh out these people's entire story. So, we're gonna keep doing that next week. And, I can't wait. I can't wait. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out here tonight. The old is this gay crisis from the pre-realization trans person. It's one of our most defining existential crises unless you grow up in an extremely gay town. Sure. I mean, I can empathize, but yeah, I mean, it's something that like I can't speak to. So the fact that, you know, it's working and resonating with people that have direct trans experiences is says a lot about the writing for sure, and is all the more exciting, and really if I can say, makes doing this live once a week in front of everybody, because Lurking Horror, it took 30 hours for us to get to this. You know what I mean? It took this much for us to get here. And I think that it's very easy to not get there. And so the fact that you guys are along this ride with me, and just my personal dedication to, and that's the whole channel, I'm seeing these things through to the end. Every game we play, I'm rolling credits on. So I'm so glad that, like, you know, another streamer or another year in my life, I would, you know, bounce off at a certain point if it kind of slowed down, even though I don't think it really ever slowed down. It's kind of been banger after banger after banger. But nevertheless, so glad I'm here. It takes all the buildup for it to mean this much. It's really phenomenal. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Until next week, that was the house in Fata Morgana, and we covered a hell of a lot of ground.